morning. On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, the Commission, Manager Fuentes, and staff, welcome to the business meeting of the City Commission of the City of Truth and Consequences. It is now 9:03 on October 11th, and I would ask anyone who has any type of device that makes any type of noise that might be disruptive, please to shut that off. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green.
Here.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead. Here. Honorable Kathy Clark.
Here.
Honorable Ralph Eschler.
Here.
Honorable Joshua Frankel.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam. Next item is number 2, silent meditation. It is truly distressing to see our flag being flown at half-mast more and more, with the loss of life in Nevada, with the loss of life in California. It's just inexplicable sometimes. So I would ask you in our 15 to 20 seconds of silent meditation to remember those who have lost their lives unplanned for, uncalled for, unnecessarily. And remember those who survived. They are in as much pain as the families of the ones who lost their loved ones. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. The next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Clark, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is approval of the agenda. I will stand for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the agenda for October 11, 2017 as submitted.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second. Second, Mayor. Second by Commissioner Heschel. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Renee, did you want to possibly table the minutes September 27th, or were you?
They can be pulled from the consent calendar at that time.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item is item C, comments from the public. 3-minute rule applies. If you want to speak to the City Commission, please come forward at the microphone, state your name, your address, and if there's any literature or any document that you want to be part of the official minutes of this meeting, there is a black box right next to the microphone. Please put it in there. The floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Sarah Frothingham, 608 Pine Street. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak, and I consider the pool our beacon, and especially after our meditation. With the killings in Sandy Hook, the Pulse in Orlando, Charleston, Las Vegas, the flyovers that are going to be happening, your bird sanctuary that you can only get to by water at Elephant Butte Lake, Monticello Canyon, all of this will be gone, and we need a beacon of safety, of joy, and I feel that's what the city pool is. And what we have here, I have here is last year's budget, and in it shows just shy of $500,000 that is the city pool budget every year. So my feeling with closing the pool for the 4 to 6 months that it'll take to resurface, and the $45,000 to $50,000 that will be saved, that we will be able to open the pool this spring. And I think it's very important because it is the community. It is our beacon of hope in the devastation that's going on in this country and around all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to address the commission? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Robert Moreau. I live at 211 Arrowhead. And I want to address some issues about TRC that I have and many people I spoke to. Almost every other street that you go down, there's a building falling down or junk in the yard. There are a lot of people are using their residence as junkyards. This is a disgrace, I think, to the city. I'm embarrassed to have some people come from out of state to visit me in this town because of the way it looks. This is not good for incoming businesses, I think, that want to open up businesses in this town. It deters them from coming in here, which brings revenue to this town. The first thing you see coming in off of I-75 at the Williamsburg exit is junk right there on the right-hand side. Now, that might be in Williamsburg, but we should go after them to get that cleaned up. They got airplanes, junk cars. That tells you what kind of a town you're coming into. And it's not very, very nice. The people that are in office, they should be ashamed of themselves, because a lot of times when you call, they've got excuses to try to get something cleaned up. Now, if you need to pass different laws, let's get them passed. Let's change some of these rules so you can get things done in this town here. Now, there's one other thing I'd like to bring up, which is different from this. This is a small town. We have maybe less than 8,000 people here. I think it would help the town if we would put up power lines in the ground. Now, I know you can't do it all at once, but just take Riverside. That's a scenic byway. With the heat and the high winds that we have here, you're always replacing lines and transformers. Now, if you could go up Dave Street to start in Riverside, I think that would save money in the long run, and it'd be a lot more pleasing to the eye. I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anybody? Yes, sir.
My name is Mary Cavett. I live at 721 Wyona Street. And first I'd like to say I agree with every word the first speaker said about the pool. But then I would like to address another topic, which is the dogs. And it doesn't seem there's a penalty for dog owners that have dogs that bite, other than the dogs eventually get put down after months of wrangling. Anyway, this is what happened to me. On May 11th, 2015, I was walking to a volunteer job at the computer lab. I was on the east side of Foch, approaching the intersection of 3rd, right here, when this enormous, mean-looking pit bull approached me. She had a cable around her neck, so I wasn't too frightened until I realized the cable was not attached to anything. I knew the dog was going to bite me, and she bit me on the back of my left thigh. I was face down in the dirt, screaming with this dog still attached to my leg, when an even larger pit bull came out of the yard and bit me on my face. I screamed until the owner and a man who was in the yard pulled the dogs off of me. I later found out that the first dog was an 80-pound, unneutered female pit bull in heat, and the second dog was a 100-pound, unneutered male. I walked to the computer room and I called animal control. Deb Peters came and took pictures of my face and leg. Then I was driven to the emergency room and treated. A few days later, the wound on my face swelled up to the size of a baseball, even though I was taking the prescribed antibiotics and also had the tetanus shot. What makes me angry is this was the second time that the female dog bit someone. Even the owner of the dog admitted that she was a mean dog. It took the city 106 days to put these vicious dogs down. That is more than 100 days these dogs were in the pound. I'm told that the city paid for the cost of confinement. Section 353 says that the owner of the animal shall pay the cost of confinement. This was one of many laws that the owner did not follow and the city did not enforce. Other laws include licensing, registration, and shots. I am told at the time of the initial bites, neither dog was licensed and neither dog had rabies shots. Another part of Penal Code 353 says that the owner's duty to immediately notify animal control when their dog bites someone. This owner did not do this. Also, the law states that sterilization is required in cases where a dog is released from the pound. Why wasn't the female dog sterilized after she bit the first person? And if there isn't a law about breeding animals in close proximity to libraries, theaters, and other places where children are present, there should be. After all this trouble with the dogs, the owners built a breeding den so that they could give more large, dangerous dogs to breed.
Ms. Cabot, thank you very much. Appreciate it. If you'd like that as part, please leave a copy and it'll be part of the minutes, ma'am. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Gary Woodcock, 312 Mars Street. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my story and what I have to say about what we need to do as a community. I and my wife Sandy were walking north on Foch Street 4 days after we came back from 4 months in Michigan. Late morning on September 26th, when Sandy noticed a dog come out of a driveway in the 700 block and began running after us. We had noticed we had passed 8th Street when the very angry animal approached us, snarling and moving in closer. We walked backwards and did not take our eyes off this vicious dog. A motorist came between us and the dog. He stopped to ask if we were okay. I saw the white animal control truck stop at the corner on Foch Street, hand pointing to the dog and motioning wildly for him to come to our aid. Another motorist came between us and the dog, and the animal control person got out with a strap in his hand. The dog owner then came up and at that point I kind of went from terrorized to angry. The dog owner then came out, and I walked up to hear what he was sharing with the animal control person. He said he was sorry and had left his window cracked open, and his dog got out. The animal control person told him, and your gate is open. We don't know if anything ever happened to the dog owner. We're walking that morning to look at a home for sale. It's our third winter in TRC. We have a TRC address, New Mexico license plate, and a New Mexico driver's licenses. We have friends here and are seriously looking to get involved with the community and make this our home. We walk daily and have come upon many angry, snarling dogs, often behind marginal fences. It is very unnerving. We, like others we've talked with, tend to stay away from areas that we know now there is serious danger. But now I realize the possible danger is everywhere here. I've had other encounters and was nearly bit in the hand by a dog on a leash on our porch. Enough is enough. I do not feel safe walking here and have hearing many other stories, including Mary's, some with gruesome details, including death. I realize we are not safe here walking. Clearly what we are doing is not working. What can we as a community do to make this community safe for everyone to walk? Thank you for listening and for your concern. I've got some other comments that I can share later when there's a give and take.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to address the commission? Yes, Marty.
Martin Migel, 721 Wyona. I always like to say thanks, number one, to the council. I have a dog story. About 10 and a half months ago, I was riding my bike on going east on Iona, and I got attacked by 2 dogs, and I had to go to the emergency room. And when the dog control officer came, he said that these dogs have violated the law for many years, so maybe he's hamstrung that for years these dogs have been wandering around. And the other thing is, last February, my sister and my wife were in Copper Canyon, a city called Creel, which is small, maybe a couple thousand, maybe 5,000 people. And I'm walking around, I see dogs, and I'm in panic. I say, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. I'm in a foreign country, there's loose dogs. No problem. So why is the culture of an impoverished city in Mexico, I'm safe with dogs running loose, but in this USA town with 2 dog control officers with trucks and skill, why am I not safe? That's be an interesting research topic. So, thanks for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else like Mr. Fenn?
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Fan, Truth or Consequences. I want to talk about item H3 today, the streets inventory and estimate for $23 million. Let's see, we want to borrow $23 million perhaps to fix our streets. Well, that's totally unrealistic for many, many reasons. I just got a copy of the actual spreadsheet last night on that inventory so that you could do a little bit of analysis. You cannot do that with what's in your packet. Currently, the street project, the sidewalk, just the side, let's just talk about the sidewalks because that's the first item on that list. The plan calls for $4,970,000 to fix the streets or to repair the streets, or I don't know what it is actually, but it's $4,970,000, a totally ridiculous figure. The current project on South Broadway has cost $53 per foot, linear foot, for that sidewalk project. And using that figure, because that includes labor, which these other figures do not include, you're looking at a cost of $13,118,000 for this 247,376 feet of sidewalk in the city. Based on the performance of the street department on South Broadway, that's an 18-and-a-half-year project just to do the sidewalks. What are we going to do with the streets that are much wider than the sidewalks? I haven't had time to even start analyzing that, but we're looking at perhaps $90 million to fix the streets in this city, and probably 40 or 45 years to do it in. Discussing this with this kind of planning is utterly a waste of time. And again, tell the truth to the people. Don't tell them partial truths, little bits, little snippets that mean absolutely nothing. There's a great deal of difference between 5 million and 13 million and 6,000 people to pay for all of this. Give us a break.
Anyone else like to address the commission? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, thank you. We will move on. The next item is response to public comment. Do any commissioners have anything to say? Commissioner Clark, I thought you might like to tell your story, please.
Yeah, and the police chief does know this story also, so I want to address the people that have addressed us about the dogs. I also am a bike rider, and there is one little neighborhood that I'm now avoiding, because not only when I walk this neighborhood do I have to carry a stick because there's big dogs that are off and run into the road after me, But the other day I was riding my bicycle and the dog came out of nowhere and is chasing me up the street while I'm riding my bike, this far away from my tires. That's pretty frightening, because if I go down, I get hurt. And Commissioners, I would like to suggest, I know that we've had this discussion before, and I think we kind of hamstring some of our animal control people, but I would like to consider readdressing the way the city deals with the animals in our community and readdress the city's ordinance, and maybe see if we can make it a little stricter, give our animal control, ask them to give us some help, and the police chief too, if you wouldn't mind, and make it so that we can actually do something to make sure that something like Mary, that happens never ever again to you or anyone else. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, well said. Appreciate that. Any other further comments? Commissioner Clark, I beg your pardon, Commissioners.
Yeah, if I may just address the
Sorry.
the gentleman that was having issues with some of the dilapidated residents around this community. I just want to reiterate that we did move code enforcement now under the auspices of the police department. That's where they work now. And I would encourage you that if you locate individual locations and addresses, please report them to the police department or to code enforcement so that we can take immediate action. I can understand that we can approach it from a broad range, but I'd like to target individual locations and individual problems, and if you'll note those things and call the police department and report those, perhaps that'll give us an opportunity to take some action on those locations. So please go ahead and do that, and this is for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark, to your point, I think possibly to the point of the commission, I will be in the clerk's office after our meeting, and I will put this for discussion action on our next agenda to take a look at our codes to see what can be done. I think animal control is doing the job that they can do, but maybe they need more tools. I took a look when you had told me about your incident. I took a look at the code, and the fine is only $100, and it's not even a mandatory fine. It's at the discretion of the court of law that the case is being heard in. So I think now, with trying to build back our population and making this a welcoming community to come in and live here, this is part of that puzzle. So I appreciate you sharing your story. I appreciate the folks, and Mary, I didn't know that story, but I am horrified, and I am sorry that it happened to you. But we will definitely put this on the commission meeting for the next meeting and start a discussion on how we can protect our citizens better. So thank you for all speaking out.
And Mayor, maybe I can
Yes,
say a few words also. Because I might point out, actually, we did revise our animal control ordinances a few years ago, and we did tighten the laws up in certain areas. So we have a pretty good ordinance regarding restraint of animals. We adopted the dangerous dog ordinance from the state statute. We have an ordinance regarding vicious animals. We also have an ordinance regarding disturbing the peace. One thing we couldn't look at, though, as you point out, was maybe the penalties need to be looked at. So that's something that I would certainly welcome us doing. Sorry, Mr. Gavai, I heard the story. Are we referring to the same case that I was working with you on? And, one thing that you might recall is the one reason why we weren't able to put the dog down immediately, because after the dog was confined, the owner filed an appeal to district court. We had to litigate that case. Remember, there was a long, drawn-out trial we had. But after we prevailed, and the owner was fined in that case, then we were able to take action. So I certainly sympathize with you then. I certainly sympathize with you now. But that was the hold-up in that case, was there was a court proceeding that we had to deal with.
Okay, thank you. So we will for those of you, and I'm quite sure there's probably more people out in the community who could share stories with us as well, unfortunately, but we will put this on the next city commission meeting, and that will be on October 25th, and we will start a discussion on how to do things better and what can we do to give our police department and our animal control better tools to work with as well. So thank you for that. Mr. Fenton, interesting, sir, that you mentioned snippets of truth. As you know, A couple weeks ago, we had a visit here by the Legislative Finance Committee, and they were here on, I guess it was Wednesday, and Thursday they went out to Spaceport America, and all of a sudden, a senator of all places from Gallup starts railing at this meeting about the building in Tier C that is the Spaceport Visitor Center, and he is going to hold back every penny of legislative dollars until a major tragedy has been corrected. I was not at the meeting, but it was brought to my attention by an elected official who I do trust and do believe that told me the truth. And so I took it upon myself to call up State Senator Munoz, and I said, I don't quite understand, so what this is all about. And he told me that he had been in contact, or you had been in contact with him, and I must congratulate you, sir. That was a very smart move, because Mr. Munoz is the senator who is leading the bandwagon to get rid of Spaceport America up in Gallup. So I congratulate you on your tactical move. But what I found out, talking about snippets of truth, that I guess when you were communicating with the senator, you forgot to tell him that there was a vote by the population of this community, and they voted 648 in favor of keeping that portion of the building as a Spaceport Visitor Center, and 146 wanted to turn back. So I think when you talk about us trying to do the best job that we can for this community, please don't talk about snippets of truth. Any other comments by the commission? Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, I can't dispute.
Excuse me. The next item is presentations. I'd like to read the following proclamation. The City of Truth or Consequences. Whereas the United States National Institute of Science and Technology has announced observance of October 6th at National Manufacturing Day 2017, and whereas manufacturing has a powerful and positive impact on New Mexico's economy, and whereas New Mexico manufacturers employ more than 26,000 New Mexicans, and whereas the manufacturing sector in New Mexico exported over $3.5 billion in goods and services last year, and whereas the average annual salary in the manufacturing sector in New Mexico in 2015 exceeded $60,000, and whereas in 2015, goods manufactured in New Mexico accounted for 96.7% of all exports from the state, and whereas in 2015's goods manufactured in New Mexico, I just read that one, whereas exports of New Mexico's manufactured goods increased more than 150% from 2010 to 2015, and whereas manufacturers throughout the state invite guests to tour their facilities during Manufacturing Month to see what is truly New Mexico made, now, therefore, I, Steve Green, Mayor, on behalf of the City Commission of the City of Truth or Consequences, Sierra County, New Mexico, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2017 as National Manufacturing Month in Truth or Consequences, and encourage all citizens and manufacturers to attend the event hosted by Main Street Truth or Consequences and the Chamber of Commerce at the T&C Brewing Company on Thursday, October 26th at 3 to 7, and any other events planned. Signed by myself and City Clerk Treasurer Renee Canton. Linda, could I ask you to come forward and take this on behalf of Main Street? And we appreciate the fact that you jumped on this and had the opportunity to showcase one of our new manufacturing facilities. And they might even have some beer for you to taste, who knows? Thank you very much. Next item is the consent calendar. I will need a motion. It consists of the city commission regular minutes of September 27th, and Commissioner Frankel has an idea on that one. Number 2, accounts payable, September 2017, and number 3, authorization to reinvest balance amounts of maturing certificates of deposit for the emergency repair service, wastewater reserve, capital improvement reserve, and electrical construction reserve accounts. I need that motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar as noted.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second.
Second, Mayor.
I have a second by Commissioner Heschel. Is there any further concerns? Comments?
I'll bring up the request of the city clerk to possibly put off the consent calendar minutes of September 27th to require a little more time to prepare if needed.
The minutes are completed, it's just that they were submitted so late, that's up to the commission if you wish to postpone those.
Would you like to ask for an
Or more time
amendment?
to review.
I would.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, would you consider amending your motion, please?
I so amend to remove item F1 for further consideration and approve F2 and 3 as noted by Mayor Green.
Thank you. I need that second.
Second?
I have a second by Commissioner Frankel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item is ordinances, resolutions, and zoning. Number 1, discussion action, resolution number 0917/18, declaring non-essential surplus property for the November auction. Our presenter is Ms. Renee Canton.
Thank you, and good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. You have before you the resolution for the next auction, which is scheduled to be held November 11th. We have a couple vehicles, and the resolution is attached, and also some computer equipment. We did have a notification of possibly another way to do the recycling for the computer equipment that we may look at in the future through our collection center and our recycling. But at this time, the way we've got it listed is for these to be included in the auction. With that, I stand for any questions that you might have.
Any questions at all? And I'd just like for the record to show that in our pre-meeting, agenda meeting as of yesterday, Ms. Canton also brought up the fact that on the bottom item, there's a steel shelf cabinet and 3 drawer file cabinet, which is steel also, and that we have a contract with a metal salvager. So I think in the future, we might take a look at what the value of what is obsolete that we're getting rid of, and put a minimum bid on that. So if we don't get that minimum bid, we'll use it on a recycling operation to make the money there. And I appreciate Ms. Canton bringing that up at the meeting. Any further questions? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 091718, declaring non-essential surplus property for the November auction as presented by City Clerk Renee Canton.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second.
Second?
Second by Commissioner Frankel. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Heschler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Josh Frankel?
Yes.
Thank you. It carries unanimously. The next item is number 2, discussion action, resolution number 1017/18, budget adjustment. Our presenter is Ms. Melissa Torres, our finance director.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, Mr. Fuentes. The City of Truth or Consequences is respectfully requesting the following budget adjustments. Please note that some of these adjustments were on the impact fees on August the 9th that you approved. However, as we've stated in the past, that DFA has strict guidelines now. We're having to bring it before you guys as a resolution. So those are also included on these too. The first one is capital improvement, transfer out, $172,000, which again, that was for the impact fees approved on the August 9th. Capital improvement transfer out, $100,000, approved on August the 9th for the impact fees. The wastewater department transfer in, $272,000. This transfer is for the impact fees going back to the wastewater as we approved on August the 9th. Wastewater to increase the expense line, $272,000. Wastewater department transfer out, $50,000. And this $50,000 will be for the CDBG project that we are working on right now, which was awarded for the manholes of $500,000. And then the CDBG transfer in the $50,000. So I stand for any questions at this time.
Thank you. Any questions, concerns?
I'm still kind of concerned, I'm a little off about these impact fees.
Commissioner Clark? Sure.
So did we come to terms with using those impact fees that have been sitting on for the Veterans Center impact fees? Is that where we're moving, and we're leaving that X amount of dollars?
Yes, ma'am.
And
yes, ma'am.
Kind of a suspense account, I would call it.
Correct.
Basically to cover anything that might come up from that issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You guys approved, which was $300,000.
Right.
However, the $30,000 was going to be set aside because of the litigations, and so that's what we did.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Ms. Torres, I do have a question. What
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Clark just brought up. So with the construction of the new hospital, there will be some nice impact fees also. Will we be able to have the flexibility that we have now, even though there is this pending legal matter that has to be determined? Will that money be available for infrastructure upgrades once it is paid to the city?
Yes, sir, it would be. Again, based on statute and ordinance, we would have to set an individual account for those impact fees that we do collect. And then based on our capital project assessment that we do, based on the commission, then those fees can be utilized for that upon your guys' approval based on that project list.
And if I may add, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, so when we do receive some of those fundings from the hospital, I think one of the projects that Tracy and Jesus and Arnie are working on with Melissa as well, is to try to get a contract engineer to come in and help us update the impact fee report, which will identify some of those projects that we need to use the funding for. And then we have a window, so part of that funding will be used to pay for that engineering update report, which in turn will identify those projects, and then we can apply those funds towards those projects.
Correct.
So.
Excellent.
Correct. And if we recall, just to echo what Mr. Fuentes said, that was one of the recommendations based on our attorneys, is that we needed to update that list. And so that's what we're doing right now.
And then I'm assuming, if I can connect the dots, and please tell me if I go off the rails here, that once the survey is done, that we would be in a better position to be a viable grant applicant if there is money out there to help us with some of these infrastructure projects, because we've already done the research. We've already analyzed what our needs are, and then we can extrapolate what our costs would be. And so I think it would make possibly Tracy's job easier, and any other person who's dealing with grants for the city, that we've already done our homework.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're defining our projects in a recent manner based,
Right.
and unfortunately, our list was pretty old, so.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other further questions or comments? If not, I will stand for a motion, please. Anyone brave enough to make
I
that
agree,
motion?
I'd like to make a motion. You got pressure me into it.
I'm so sorry to put the pressure on you, Commissioner.
I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 1017-18, the budget adjustment as presented by our finance director, Melissa Torres.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler. I need a second. I will second that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Can we have a roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Yes.
Honorable Ralph Fischler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Joshua Franco?
Yes.
Thank you. It carries unanimously. The next item is G3, discussion action resolution number 1117/18, amending the finance policy and procedures. Don't move. Oh, you didn't. Director of Finance, Ms. Torres.
The city again is respectively requesting your approval on the revised policy and procedures for the City of Truth and Consequences. On this update, we are recognizing the COSO, which is the framework of internal control. This is part of our milestone that we're putting into place in making these adjustments that our auditors have recommended. But not only that, it gives us the structures and the build of our internal controls and recognizes what we need to do as a city entity. So I stand for any questions at this time.
Commissioner Clark. Why did I know that? Why did I know that look was not to see if my part was straight this morning?
Ms. Torres, you have a copy of this in front of you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can we go to page 23? And talk to me about the checks. The questions I have on this are, obviously the things in red are the new additions to the procedures, policies and procedures, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we're putting these individuals, mayor, city clerk, deputy city clerk, and finance director on as currently signed, is this a dual signature per check?
It does require a dual signature, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Talk to me about the checks being put on pre-printed check stock without routing, checking numbers, et cetera, and how that converts into being processed through the banking system.
Okay, so we're very fortunate. Our Tyler system is basically our accounts payable system. We do own the stock, but the stock is it's just blank stock, which is a secured stock and is only assigned to 3 areas. One is the clerk's office, the other is our accounts payable, which is our procurement officer, and the other one is payroll. Upon that, you cannot just take that stock and manually write anything because, it's just blank stock. So you have to, with our system, which is a secured system, you have to do accounts payable. You have to assign it to a payee or to a vendor to issue it out to that particular person, which then will give you a routing number and a check number.
And it can only go through those 3 departments?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's really tightened everything up is what I'm hearing.
Definitely. Yes, ma'am.
And the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and this is one of my favorites, is accrual. And that was on my page 80. That basically what it paraphrased is that because we're on a cash basis, we've gotten stung for the debt issues and how much is in there, do we have the ability to make those payments? That's what I'm reading in here, is that correct?
Correct.
And that only at the end, when we have auditors, do we have an accrual accounting to show that the debt's on there and what our payables are and what, what kind of situation we're in. And, that's 1.5 years after the fact. So if we're in trouble, we're not going to know until after the fact. In other words, like 18 months down the road. Is there any way that we can be a little more on top of that payables and debt in that cash accounting kind of system? Can we fudge it just a little bit?
That's a very good question, ma'am. And that is, under the finance department, it is our responsibility to be reconciling it on a monthly basis. And so upon us reconciling on the monthly basis, that is the time where we can identify deficiencies or things that are not taken care of in a timely basis, so we can make those adjustments.
Can we do that for receivables too?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm not going to bother you anymore.
Questions? Any further comments? I just had two quick ones.
Yes, sir.
Number one, I want to thank you. This was not done overnight.
No,
And it
sir.
has- I know how you speak and the words you use, and it has your department, you, and Manager Fuentes' voices all over the red. But I do have something of concern. First, I want to thank you for putting in the education of the department heads so they're familiar with this document and they know what their expectations are in running their departments and reporting to you in a timely fashion, so to Commissioner Clark, we don't find out a year later, whoops. Of all the commissions I have served on, there's been a steady drumbeat. Can we start the budget process earlier? And I would just like to just put that out from me. I'm not speaking for the commission, but we seem to be the last to get into the budget process. We've heard it from our citizens. We've heard it from the fellow commissioners that I have had the privilege to serve with over all these years. If, without crucifying your department, if we could start this process a little bit earlier, it always seems to get to the last minute, and it's hurry up, rush, and no one's really pleased because that's our main goal, is being caretakers of the checkbook. And we have to know what we're really voting on and really feel comfortable. And I think this might make Commissioner Clark a little bit happier and all the other commissioners. So just put it in the back of the bonnet. I appreciate it.
Definitely, sir.
Thank you very much. All right. Anyone else have any comments, words of wisdom? Seeing none, I will stand for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 111718, amending the finance policy and procedures as presented by our finance director, Melissa Torres.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Clark. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Wyatt?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Eschler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Joshua Franklin?
Aye. Carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for your efforts and all the people who you have working with you to produce that document. Well received. H1, discussion action, benefits to the community for the new law enforcement complex. I put this on the agenda again, but first I want to make a statement. I support, as surprisingly as this might sound, I support Mr. Fenn's right to question a decision that's been looked at for over 3 years about taking the armory and converting it into a safety complex. I support that democratic process. I think it's money that is not wisely spent, because if he gets over 168 signatures and he has until Friday to turn that petition in, it will, thank you, it will mandate an election. And that's part of the government that we exist under, which is a commission manager form of government. For example, if we were Elephant Butte, where we had a mayor council form of government, that would not be allowed to have a petition like that. But so it is, and we abide by that. And the reason I put this on again is because what happened at Spaceport America is that we got a bad reputation because in this particular case, Mr. Fenn didn't tell the whole story about our visitor center space. And what concerns me is, although I support his right to do what he is doing, I don't know what he is saying to the public. We're not privy to that. And therefore, he has been able, and I understand through the grapevine, that he has the required number of signatures. And he has till Friday to turn it in. And I apologize for this taking so long, but because we wanted to be absolutely 100% legally right in what I'm going to tell you, we waited until a legal letter came to us to advise the citizens of what your rights are. And until that petition is turned in, and I will just read you one line, and this was a law firm in Santa Fe, and also we were dealing with our boots on the ground attorney, Mr. Rubin, to make sure that we were not giving out wrong advice. And the legal letter reads, and I'm not going to read the whole letter, we therefore recommend that if the city clerk receives requests by signers, people who have signed that petition, to have their names withdrawn from a petition, and those requests are received before the petition has been filed, the clerk's office should maintain a record of those requests dated and signed by the requester, and should then remove those names from consideration when the petition is being reviewed and certified. So the process is, someone who wants to do this, they have 30 days to get the required number of signatures. It's brought into the city clerk's office, and they have 10 days to verify every signature. And if the signatures are verified and it's more than the required number, that automatically triggers an election, which must be held, and Renee, correct me if I go off the rails here, within 90 days? Within 90 days of that. So I just wanted to let the citizens know that you do have rights. And if you felt that you didn't get the whole picture, or you misunderstood, or you were pressured and you just wanted to sign your name to move on, you can try to get that name off. If Mr. Fenn hears my voice over the radio right now and runs down to City Hall and turns in that petition, well, then you have another right. You have another opportunity, and that's at the election. So voting is really incredibly important. It's the way that the will of the commission is heard through the citizens that we represent. So if this should come to a vote, I ask you, let's have the best voter turnout we have ever had, and the citizens will speak. I think that there is still, I was at the farmer's market this past Saturday, and there's still misinformation. I don't know who's giving it, and I'm not going to accuse anybody of giving misinformation because I wasn't there. And that's why I am continually going to put this on the agenda so the citizens have all the facts that they need to make an intelligent decision. It took us 3 years to get to the point where we made that decision. I'm not really quite sure how you can make a decision in 5 minutes with someone waving a piece of paper in front of you. So I have some other things to say, but I'm tired of hearing my own voice, as well as I'm quite sure my fellow commissioners are. Stop smiling, Commissioner Clark. And so, is there anyone else who would like to jump in here?
I have some things to say.
Yes, Commissioner Clark.
Just two things. One, I want to reiterate that the last meeting, the chief and I had spent some time working on the finances of this, and it was very important to reiterate, because I had a couple of people come up to me the last 2 weeks and ask questions about, well, what are you going to do with the building when the police department moves to the new one? So I just want to reiterate that we came up with the fact that we're spending $120,000 a year on animal control up at the veterinarian's place. And then we had a couple of other transfers down to Deming for misdemeanor people, and the mortgage payment that we're paying on the current building adds up to about $151,000. That instead of going out, we'll be staying in our police department. And this payment that we're going to make on a new facility is about $107,000, $109,000. So we're actually putting more money into the police department's hands by doing this facility as opposed to leaving it as it is. The other question is, what do you do with the building? You sell the building. and then you use that funding to help pay down the note on this new complex. The other comment I want to make that I think is very pertinent to today's conversation is that this safety complex will also be the location of the animal control and the animals. So we will be personally in charge of the animals that are pulled off the street, and then it gives us more control to make certain that we're following our own ordinances, that the vaccinations are taken care of, the spay and neuter is taken care of, that dangerous dogs is violation number 2. There's some issues that can be dealt with that. We can look at dangerous dogs. Are these the kind of dogs that are going in? And it's under our control instead of being contracted out. And I think that that's something that we haven't really discussed much, but because we're all having this animal thing right now, I think there's some real value to encouraging this to happen faster than not. Anyway, those were my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Anyone else like to,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just kind of address the question that has been reported on the Herald in regards to Mr. Mike Tooley questioning the difference between the estimated cost estimate from the project and what we're seeking for a loan. What we are seeking is a $2 million loan through a dedicated GRT, part of the GRT that was dedicated to the police department. Now, we're trying to do our best effort to be frugal with public finances, and that's why we're not asking for a lot of money, but we're asking for the majority to be done through loans through New Mexico Finance Authority. In the cost estimate from the architects, there are some built-in additives, whether it's parking, paid parking space, a carport, and so forth. But what we are asking for is to give us the flexibility. If the estimates come in closer to $2 million, let's say it comes in at 2.2, 2.3, we do have other revenue sources, whether it's the ending cash balance, the savings, through the efforts of the chief and being frugal with his resources, using part of that, using part of the sale proceeds from the sale of the current building, and also some of the other savings even in this fiscal year. So there's a combination of resources that we will be using to fill that gap. But the majority of the funding will come from the New Mexico Finance Authority loan. A lot of times when you present a project and put it out to bid, unfortunately, sometimes contractors want to know, well, how much do you have in your kitty? And they will say, well, you have $3 million. Well, submit a bid for 2.9. So in our effort, we want to be frugal. We have $2 million. Our loan is $2 million. We want to get it around that amount. And that's our job, to try to make it as closer to that number as possible. If we have a little bit of room, we're not going to say how much because we don't want them to know, then we'll go ahead and look at other resources. But just wanted to address that information that's being reported. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
thank you. Okay. I do have a question, if I may, Manager Fuentes. We've heard a lot about asbestos in the building. We have heard that it's going to be wrapped, and if it's wrapped, it won't get disturbed, and it will be safe for people. I have also heard that we're going to remove the asbestos. So could you please tell us what we're doing?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, staff did have a engineering company doing an assessment of those old panels that are on the building, and we did also get a cost estimate, and I believe it was under 20 to remove the asbestos from the building. So we are going to have that removed so that there is no perception in the future that there might be something in there. So that is that is the direction and recommendation we're going to be proceeding with.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Commissioner Hutchinson.
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, as a commission, we voted unanimously in support of the law enforcement complex. Our commitment to this project isn't over, however. There's a petition being circulated to stop this initiative contrary to the commission's desires. For the citizens of this community, please consider the following. This law enforcement complex presents an opportunity to provide even greater service to our citizens. We should not settle to be in the top 14 law enforcement departments in the state. This is only the start of what we should expect. By supporting this initiative, we are saying yes to our police officers and chief who envision a department that will provide improved services to our community, better liaison with our schools to reach out to our younger citizens to be more productive in our society, and to establish reserve and cadet programs in support of the police department and our community. Reserve and cadet programs can develop future officers that have vested interest in this community and can help develop more caring and compassionate officers. This center can provide a place for our citizens to better interact with our officers in investigations, emergency situations, for community planning and coordination with other departments. This center will also provide a location and the ability for multiple agencies to come together for training and to coordinate and handle major incidents that require the establishment of incident command systems. An argument being made against the law enforcement complex is that the current police station is adequate for today's operations. Do we really want to settle for adequate? Shouldn't we plan for 20 years in the future? Shouldn't we expect more and improved services, and shouldn't we expect a law enforcement complex that is a focal point and pride for this community? As a commission, if we truly believe in this initiative, we must be prepared to contact our constituents should this petition prevail. We may need to put boots on the ground, make phone calls, talk to service groups, and do everything we can to make sure the law enforcement complex becomes a reality. Please join your commission in support of the law enforcement complex. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hessler. Anyone else have any comments? I just would like to reiterate one more time, it is not a new tax. This was 0.25% that was voted, I believe, back in 2011, and it's embedded within the police department. And it was for public safety. And Chief, I asked you this once before, sir, and you don't have to get up, but I wanted just for the record. I asked you, or one of the commissioners asked you, that 0.25% represents about 260 to 280,000. It fluctuates where our GRT is. And the question was, if 110,000, as Commissioner Clark has pointed out, comes off the top to pay down this bond, does that leave you enough money in your budget to provide this city with quality, certified, trained officers, quality patrol, and a feeling of safety? As Commissioner Heschler pointed out, that we are the 14th safest city in New Mexico out of 106, because I don't think any commissioner would want to do anything that would jeopardize the performance level of your department. So are you comfortable with taking on this responsibility of paying down the bond out of your budget?
Absolutely, 100%. Not only have we looked at that, but we looked at what's remaining, and it still allows us to increase levels of service that we're currently unable to provide. This is definitely within our budgetary means. It is fiscally responsible at the same time, and we're very confident that this is going to be the correct direction. I've met with not only myself and my staff, but with our finance director. I've had the city manager meet with me, not one time, multiple times, and we've gone over the numbers. And through being fiscally responsible and being frugal with the city's money, with the citizens' money, it's allowed us to get to this point. This project was started way before I arrived here, and I'm glad that we've been able to take a global look at where we were at, make a long-range plan, and bring us to where we're at today, and it's gotten us here. And I'm going to tell you, it's well within our means to do this.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I have a question for the chief. Does this also include pay raises for our officers, like it was initially intended for, to retain these people here instead of us being the training grounds and then sending them off?
Yes, and I want to address that. When I first arrived here 3 years ago, one of the first things I did was a SWOT analysis, a 360-degree SWOT analysis of the entire organization. And I developed what were the 3 things that were causing that attrition, what are things that we can do to transition from a training ground to a career. One of those was pay, and we have increased the pay. We've made our officers' salaries, they've been increased over the last 3 years. I want to say a minimum of 70% across the board, excluding mine and those on salary. which has allowed us to be more competitive on a state level. One of the things that we do face is that the state of New Mexico has a huge deficit in sworn certified police officers, and I have other agencies contacting me saying, hey, do you have any applicants that you're not looking at? I'm very happy to report we have no lack of applicants. For every position we've had open, we've had 5 to 10 applicants for it. It's allowed us to be very selective. Within this scope, there is the consideration and the goal of improving that pay scale over the next few years is there. It is within our budgetary means. That was part of the consideration on moving forward with this project, is being able to maintain that retention. Because if we're constantly hiring and retraining, we can't get from step A to step B. It's important to have that retention value, and when you have agencies in the state of New Mexico right now that are offering $15,000, $8,000 as a signing bonus to come on board, and we have people here saying, you know what, this is a career. It's not always about salary, but it's about working conditions, it's about onboarding, it's about setting that mental picture of where I'm going to be at 5, 10, and 15 years. We have great people. So to answer your question, absolutely yes. We do have a goal on where we want to be in a couple of years with that, and it's within our financial abilities to do that. We still have areas of financial income that we haven't even touched yet. We get our law enforcement protection funds annually, and we utilize that to buy equipment and those things. So we are looking far distant into the future on maintaining that. I'm happy to say we're getting some Class A candidates, and we're bringing people on board with college degrees, and we do have to compensate them accordingly, and we are.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Great question. Thank you. Great question. Any other questions? Okay. There will be no action, but thank you for your ideas and your ongoing support as a commission for this project. The next item is H2, discussion action, possible closure for the pool in the winter. Manager Fuentes and Don Armillo will be presenting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, Don, would you like to come on down? Just like the Price is Right, right? Just don't fall down.
But you can't choose behind door 3, because I've got that one covered, Don.
$1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. So, again, this is a follow-up from the prior meeting regarding the possible closure for the pool during the winter. As stated in the Commission Action Forum at the meeting of September 13, Millie McLeod made that recommendation. And it certainly does help that we have at least some public initiative and public support to try to find the different ways how we can be frugal and find savings to be able to make certain improvements to our facilities. Tracy has been working with Don in obtaining a quote from Pool Pro, which she has for a replastering of the pool, and there's a possibility of another option, but the replastering is about $110,000. And with the savings, Melissa was able to do an analysis of some of the savings for the closure of a 6-month period, and we're looking at between $60,000 and $70,000. I know Don has been in contact with, working with staff on trying to identify, it is getting colder, which means that we are getting to the point of needing to put the cover up, or if the commissioners approve, keep it down, close it, and proceed forward with finalizing the quote and the bids to be able to proceed forward with the replastering. Don, do you want to add any information?
No, well, yeah, just a little bit. First of all, thank Tracy Burnett. She's been really getting, doing quite a bit of work and making sure that all this is done under the original quotes, and so she's checked that. We've been up here several years now talking about trying to get something done here, and Tracy got a definite answer from the inspector saying that if this isn't done in February, the pool will not open. It will not pass. So, and now it's we put it off, and now we need to get a definite decision on where we're going from here.
So with that, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, again, we'll stand for any questions. Staff, along, the Finance Department, the Finance are looking at it. I think we can make it happen where we can proceed not only through the savings, but also some of the other funding that we may have in our departments, as well as some of our ending cash balance to make sure that we have that missing gap. So again, our recommendation is to go ahead and proceed forward with the closure to be able to move forward with the replastering of the pool. It's going to be the option that will long-term be better for the pool, not just we want something that's going to last for years to come. And with that, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, we'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mayor.
For the manager?
Go ahead.
Don, please. For the resurfacing project, the company that you're working with, did they set any parameters on the weather conditions that they would need in order to do the resurfacing? I know it gets, pretty cold in January, February. Are they wanting to do that on the front side of winter or on the spring side? Can they work in any conditions? Does the product need to be at a certain ambient air temperature in order to cure properly? Is it advisable to do the resurfacing during those winter months?
Tracy, did they answer anything on that?
I can tell you that we're looking into two possible ways to do the pool.
Tracy, can you come?
And I'm not sure if they discussed anything as far as the temperature, but anytime you do any plastering, any type of that things, that's going to need to be taken into effect.
I have been in contact with Pool Pro, and they are looking at giving us two possible options for the resurfacing of the pool. I've requested a variety of information to answer some of those questions, length of time, temperature, anything and everything that we may need. Unfortunately, they're in the process of moving offices. I was hoping to have that information for the manager today. We should hopefully have some information on that by the end of the week. They are working very hard on getting us all information.
Great, yeah, 'cause I hate to see a situation occur where we close the pool for the winter with the intent of resurfacing, and then we find out that we're not able to resurface until May, and then suddenly we're closed through the summer. So I wanted to know that if we're going to close for this period of time, that we're able to do the job during that period of time.
I think either route would go from the way I understand it. There is a lot of prep work that has to be done prior to either option, the replastering or the liner. And I think that those can be done during different types of weather. As far as the actual resurfacing, I still am waiting on an answer for that, so I don't want to give you incorrect information.
My concerns are noted.
And part of the reason for closing it during this time too is also the savings of the money that we'll have by not heating the pool, not having the thing open. So we'll be saving on the utilities, and that's part of this package. The way it was presented was to get those savings while the time, so it may end up in the spring that we can actually get the pool replastered. But part of it's going to be based on maintaining those savings on the pool. So.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I have that note down too. And then I have a question about dealing with the health department, in specific, Christy. If we close that, and she knows that we're going to be plastering it, my question is that she definitely is not going to give us the permission to open until it's plastered. But if that, she's going to start with a brand new permit if it's closed for a period of time in May, for example, to open it back up. Isn't that correct?
That's what I would assume, yes.
Okay, so but we haven't talked to her to make sure that she knows that we are closing it. Tracy, you've talked to her?
I have talked to her, and Pool Pro as well is aware of our deadline, and they did implicate that they shouldn't have any issues with getting the pool done prior to our deadline.
That's February.
Correct. So, but without definite information from them, I can't say weather-wise. I don't know if they're saying, if our weather's great, they can get it done. If our weather's not great, they can't. But Christy does know that we are working on this, and she does know that we've reached out to Pool Pro.
Does she know that we are, in fact, maybe closing it
Correct.
And so she wouldn't even come in February to give us the permit to be open because we're not open, we're closed.
She's waiting to hear back from me on what
So there's
decisions
still
are
some,
and what
there's still
should
some
go.
question about, how this whole thing is going to go down then, right?
She's just waiting for some final information, yeah.
Okay.
Which
But
route
she's
we're
still
going
basically willing to work with us, knowing that we are going to close it. We're not going to have it open past February if it's not replastered.
Correct. It will not pass inspection if it's not replastered. by
Right, but
February.
inspection could possibly be May.
We haven't discussed
If we're
that until we
closed
get
already.
final
Would
information.
you ask for that?
Pardon?
Ask Christie that.
I will, yeah, I'll
If
definitely
she knows
reach
that we're
out.
closing it voluntarily, and that it might be the plastering issue because of the ambient temperature or whatever. I mean, it gets pretty cold in February, and plaster's not going to set up real well outside. And I think that was the point you were making, isn't it, Commissioner Franco? So that if it's closed, then we'll call her when we're ready to have it open, when the plastering's done, and that may be May. The other question basically goes to Millie, I'm sorry. But I know you've known all of the people at the swimming pool, and can you convince me that most of them are in favor of this being closed for this period of time? Do you mind if I call her up, Mayor?
No.
No, that I know a lot of them are not in favor of it being closed. But to save the city the money to have it replastered versus you closing the pool forever, which the health department's going to do in February, our little group felt like it would be the best thing to do, to close it and you get it replastered. It could be replastered soon, before the really cold weather sets in.
Thank you. Mr. Armijo, then that...
Commissioner Clark, if you want, if I
Sure.
could just, our little group, is that Friends of the Pool that you're referring to, or is
No.
that another group?
I think Friends of the Pool is against the closing of the pool. Would one of you like to come up and talk for Friends of the Pool?
Yeah, I agree, this might be a little bit out of order, but I think for the commission to really be able to make some intelligent decisions, we need to find, since there appears to be maybe two different groups have two different opinions, so let's hear from the Friends of the Pool.
I feel the Friends of the Pool that are for closing the pool for the winter now, and if we can reopen it so that we can have it in the spring, like I had said in the beginning when I was speaking, this would be wonderful. And we really do need to have the pool.
And we don't want the pool to stay closed.
No.
My little group, the ladies in the afternoon exercise in the pool. We do not want the pool closed forever. We want it open, and we want it covered in the winter if that's possible too. We just want it closed to save the salaries, the heat, the gas, everything that it takes to keep that cover up. We want it closed to save that money so that you can vote to plaster that pool and open it again next summer.
Next spring,
Thank you.
hopefully.
Spring, okay.
Next
Just
spring,
a couple more
yes,
follow-up.
All right, thank you very much, both of you, I appreciate that. Are there any other
So,
questions of
yes, two more
staff?
questions of staff. Mr. Armijo, we would have to close the pool anyway to plaster it.
Yes.
So that's a done deal. You guys know that we're going to have to close it to plaster it. The other question is to Tracy. Did Pool Pro give you a time frame if they got started, did all the prep and plastered, and it was great weather? I've got what I was told, but I'm just questioning you. What were you told in a time frame as far as being closed for real?
Just a very long estimated time frame between the two different types of plastering could be, if everything went nice and smooth, as quick as 3 to 4 weeks, as long as 8 to 10, 12, depending on what they encounter when they get in there.
That's the word that I remember too. It could go anywhere from a month to 2.5 months. So we are looking at this being closed for at least that period of time. So why not close it when we can save the money? Okay. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, did you have something?
I'm just concerned, it seems like we're talking about if and when, and we're not we don't know for sure. So if we close the doors to the pool today to save this money, And 3 months down the road, we're still going nowhere. 6 months down the road, we're still going nowhere. We don't know what the state's going to come in and if they're even going to certify us. So, you know, we could look at the next year it being closed. So is that something, I mean, we need definite answers. We need to know from the State Department what Christie expects and what we need to do, and we need a time frame. You know, we need to work on time frames. We can't get there from here without knowing where we're going and what monies we have. Again, we can close the pool for 3 months. We can close the pool for 6 months. Are we still going to have the money? Is Manager Fuentes going to find the money to pay for this? Are we going to go out there and steal from Peter to pay Paul? I mean, how are we going to do it? Nobody has that answer. And Friends of the Pool, they can give their suggestions and the aerobics classes and everybody else, but we don't know what we need to do to make it happen. We need definite answers.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, and I think those definite answers we already have in the discussions from Tracy with Christie, and that is we do have a report that says it needs to be replastered. So we know that that's a definite. We also know that weather's getting colder, and by this time we should be putting up the cover, like similar to last year. So we know that, and we know it doesn't make any sense for us to even do that if we have to do this project. So we have to keep that cover off, which in essence, that's the action what we're asking the commissioners is pretty much to close it, because we don't want to put that cover. It's not an easy task for staff to put it up, inflate it, and then having to take it down a month or two from now. So we do know that, and we do know that how much, at least we're looking at what the cost is going to be for replastering, which is $110,000. We know that through the savings is going to be between $60,000 and $70,000. So we just, as Tracy mentioned, there's some final information that we need from Pool Pro to get us what that time frame is going to be. But we have been in contact, Tracy has been in contact, and as Commissioner Clark pointed out in the past, we've met with Christie at the pool, and she knows what we're dealing with, and she knows what we need to do to make it corrected. She is working with us, and she's giving us that time to make the replastering or whatever option we go with. So what we're asking the commission is, at this time, is for us to be able to proceed forward with a more concrete action plan that, yes, we're already closing. Now we can start with the preparations, getting the final quotes from Pool Pro, getting the final word from Christie, making sure she's up to speed on what we're doing, working with the finance department on making sure that the funds are there available so that we can get this project done. If we postpone it another meeting, that's 2 more weeks where staff cannot move forward with this project. And that's what we're asking, is hopefully we can go ahead and get a definite answer today so that we can start coordinating with everybody, Friends of the Pool, staff, the state, and Pool Pro, the contractors, to get this project done as soon as possible. Thank you.
I have another really horrible question.
I'm sorry?
I have another really horrible question.
Okay, can I just ask my not-so-horrible question, then you can have your horrible question. Thank you. So what's going to happen to the employees when we close the pool? I mean, I think I saw that we hired a pool manager.
Yes.
And maybe a lifeguard or two. I'm not really quite sure about that. Are we putting people, what's going to happen with
So the staff that we do have some vacancies, which we're not going to be filling right now. And those staff people that we have on board will be assigned other duties at the pool, either to clean it up, spruce it up, or they might be assigned to other departments in the interim to help out in other areas. So they'll still be working for the city, but just, in different capacity, depending as needed, and might even help during the work being done at the pool. So that's what we're going to be asking staff to do.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark.
Okay, my horrible question is this. Would there be a difference in timing to plaster that pool if the cover was on and it was heated inside of there?
That's something that we'll need to ask Pool Pro and check on that and see.
Would you mind asking that?
Yeah, and that could be the other thing too, and part of doing preparations, because you're working in like that, and so we actually sit down with them and get a plan together, because they can tarp it and heat it at night with those portable heaters, so when you're working out in the cold weathers, they can actually keep the heat in there so that the plaster cures and everything's done too. So there is that possibility, because once we pump all the water out, you can throw those huge tarps over the top of it. You know, there's blankets, there's other different things, but, you know, we just have to get those individual, you know, ideally it'd be nice to have 70-degree weather and put that, but if not, you know, we can just make sure that, one of the things is with the plaster that Tracy was looking at with PolPro, that was a 25-year warranty on that, so.
Commissioner Ashland. Just a comment, you know, if we do keep the cover on the pools or replaster, then we're defeating the purpose of gaining money to help pay for the resurfacing of the pool. And the other comment I want to make is that, remember, even if we end up resurfacing this pool in the next 2 months, we're still not going to open it up for 6, because we've got to save that money in order to help pay for the bill. That's the way I understand it.
So I just have a follow-up question, Don. You mentioned pump out the water. What do we do with the water? Where's that water go?
It'll probably be put into the sewer system, and then go back into the, well, I'll take that back. It will be put into the sewer system, and then pumped out to the, through the wastewater.
Okay.
Because, yeah, once it's chlorinated, we can't use it for, to put on streets, or we can't use it to water parks, we can't use it to anything like that, so.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going into the Rio Grande.
No.
Which would put the city in international water.
We definitely can't do that.
Okay, thank you for that. Commissioner Frankel.
I just have one more thing to add. Should we approve the closure of the pool, let's say the pool closes on Monday, I would like to see action being taken on Tuesday to start completing whatever punch list is required from Pool Tech on our end to prepare for their arrival. So, you know, if we decide to close the pool on Monday, I don't want to see it sitting vacant for a month and a half before we start disassembling railings and making necessary preparations. While the weather is nice and things are still happening, I'd like to see every effort made to have our punch list prepared well ahead of time before Pool Tech comes in.
Yep.
Any other questions? No, Millie. Any other questions, concerns? And maybe, Commissioner Frankel, to your point, maybe the two different groups might be able to help staff in some of the work, or at least maybe if we want to repaint the locker rooms and some of the things that people, you don't need, you know, technical skills to do, that we really could begin to make this kind of a community project. Because it really does serve the community, and I agree with people who say the pool is important. I've been a strong proponent of that. I think we've all voted consistently to ask the task management to find the money. It's not inexpensive, as we all know, running a pool, but it's vital that we fix it so we get certified by the state and we open it up as quickly as possible. So I will, if there's no...
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
when are we looking at closing this pool?
I guess that's not my pay grade. Don, do you have any idea?
Well, Mr. Mayor, Don, when does the pool cover normally go up? I mean, for those people who are using the pool right now, is it starting to get too cold in the morning?
I haven't used it the last couple of days.
Anybody
It's
there?
already closed.
It's already closed.
Closed because of staff and
Okay.
absence.
Shortage.
So it's
So-
closed, and before you could put anybody new as a new lifeguard there, it would be too cold.
Okay. Commissioner Hessler.
Yeah, just one quick question.
Excuse me. Okay, thank you.
So, just to let you know, not to interrupt. Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
that's okay. My wife does all the time.
So, right now, the pool is being opened. The plans were to, this week, to try to get the cover back up on it, but we put that off because we're waiting to see, you know, to get a definite answer on this decision that we're going to do. You know, like Manager Fuentes said, there's no sense in putting it up, turn around 2 weeks, and have to take it back down again. Every time we put it up and take it down, that's wear and tear on that tarp too.
So if the commission were to vote in favor of doing what we're hearing, would it be fair to say that the pool would stay open on Friday and close on Friday, and then we could start this process, to Commissioner Franco's point? I mean, is there any time schedule that we can let the community, the citizens, the pool users, kind of know what the game plan is here on a time schedule? Is that possible, though?
Yeah, that would be possible. I think the biggest thing is going to be now is when we get the definite answer back from Pool Pro on how long it'll take, and then, we could look up, and then pretty much once it's going to get too cold to do it, then we'll know that we're going to close for sure. We'll know we're headed in that direction, and then so it'll just be a matter of, okay, they say it's going to take this long, we can start, we get the answers on what we'll be able to do with the plaster and the heat, and make sure that we can do everything during this time to be able to knock it out. And so once we get those, we can definitely have definite answers when that needs to get done. It won't take no time at all to get the pool drained and get it ready and get it, start getting everything prepped like that. There's things that we can do, once we have a definite answer that, yeah, this is the direction we're going.
Okay, Commissioner Heschel. Yeah, Mayor, if we close the pool October 15th, then we would have to, in 6 months, open it on April 15th of next year. If we close it on November 1st, then we would open it on May 1st of next year. If we open it on May 1st of next year, does that meet everybody's needs here, or do we know? Is that too late?
Normally, when did we open the pool back up after the winter? I thought it was almost before May. Does anybody?
It was right before school let out, I believe. April?
Okay. I think we can definitely make it.
Yeah, and I think that's important because they also, not only the folks that are here and those who are not here that use, the adults that use the pool, but we do have the wee hoppers. We have a great swim team that Destiny Mitchell is the coach on, and I certainly would not like to deprive them, if at all possible, of having the ability to be competitive swimmers and train and things such as that. So I think there's the young and the old, Don, that are going to be standing on either of your broad shoulders saying, get it done, and get it done and reopen it. So I think that's important. If there's no further discussion, I will stand for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I will move that we close the pool effective October 15th, right? With the possibility of reopening it on April 15th in hopes that all of this resurfacing and reconstruction and everything is done properly. I would also like to put into my motion that I would like for Dawn and Tracy to report back on the activity that's being done on the pool at each meeting, knowing how we're progressing and how we're coming along and what needs to be done next in order to open the pool back in 6 months. Is that a fair motion?
Okay.
Second that motion.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem, and I have a second by Commissioner Franco. Is there any further discussion?
I have one more thing.
Commissioner Clark.
Mr. Amijo, in this process while you're talking to Pool Pro, and just for curiosity, would you ask them what it would cost in addition to make this a standard 25-foot pool so that the swim team could actually invite other teams in here to have a meet? Because we're about that much short on that pool from being a standard meet pool, and I was just curious if you could find out if it's not something absolutely outrageous.
You want to modify the pool?
One end.
Yeah.
Just to extend it. Just ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. We may not like the answer.
Well, if Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, and I think what we'll do first, we'll get the quote that for the replastering and the time frame, and then maybe after that, we can kind of entertain.
If you're plastering it, you might.
That will be longer than 6 months.
I think it's too short, but we'll find out.
The only other thing.
If it's too long, then that's not a problem.
Yeah, we got to bump it. We got to bump you, make it shorter. What I would like to suggest also, this is not, since we're discussing, and this is not part of the motion, but I would like to suggest that our clerk's office send Christie the copy of the minutes of this meeting that reflect on the pool closure, so that she knows that the city commission and staff is on it. So I would, that's not part of your motion, Mayor Pro Tem, but that's just as an aside. Let them know what we're doing up there that we're doing down here.
Mr. Mayor, if I may address those administrative issues. One is definitely that information, Tracy's right there, so she's definitely will, since she's been in contact with Christie, she'll make that, communicate that to her, and once the minutes are available. If there's no objection, definitely on the reporting back, I can definitely, rather than having Tracy and Don be on the agenda every single time, I can definitely report on it under my report to the commission.
Okay.
As long as we have some type of report of where we're going and what we're doing.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, should I also include that our staff from the pool will remain employed as?
If you want to, I mean, I take the manager's word
Okay.
for it. If he said that they're going to stay employed, I don't think I have to put that.
There's no changes
Thank
there.
you.
That's up to you.
Okay.
The other thing, since we're just discussing really quick, I see Linda DiMarino's in the audience. The Main Street got an ARP grant, and I associate ARP with people of my age, for $15,000 or $14,000 to do sidewalks. I'm wondering, as we move forward, if we should start looking at grants for health and physical fitness and things such as that, because we do have an older community, and they are using it for aerobics and for health, that if there's an ARP grant for, let's just say $15,000 for sidewalks, maybe there's an ARP grant for $15,000 for health and physical safety, for senior citizens, for example. And the other thing I would like to do is just to suggest that when time avails itself, that we reach out to the Health Science Department of UNM and New Mexico State University and ask for their guidance for physical fitness and see if there's money out there. Because, yeah, we're willing to foot the bill for the pool. And as you all know, it ain't cheap. But if we can get some grants to help us, it just gives us more money in the budget to impact more people's lives on other things as well. So just a suggestion. So we have a motion and we have a second, and we've had some wonderful discussion. All those in favor of the motion, which is so long ago we probably forgot what it was, but it was a good motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Manager Fuentes. Number 3, discussion action, street improvements, analysis update, City Manager Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, I'll have Don. And as reported earlier, I think in your packets you have an analysis that Don did regarding the number of streets that we have and some of the work that it will take. And Don, if you want to share with the commissioners and the public just real quick of what your findings were in regards to the report that you provided.
Okay, so the report you guys got in front of you there, that's basically what's us doing the work, and that's basically the cost of the materials to go in and put hot mix and it would be completely removing what's there and going back in and putting a new 2-inch layer of hot mix in there. So that being said, part of the new ADA rules that we're having to comply with also say that the minute that we do new construction or what's considered new construction on streets like this, we have to put in the sidewalk and do sidewalk to make sure that it's ADA compliant on those streets. So if you'll look on there, you'll see that, you'll see the intersections. It's all broke down. Part of it was through the ADA plan, showing where, so the sidewalk was already estimated and the other stuff is already estimated so that we can meet the ADA portion of it. And then we've got the hot mix part of it to be able to use hot mix and go through. There might be the possibility of a little bit of savings on the base course, depending on the process that we use, but this is basically, he has to come in and figure out how much it would cost to rip everything out, put new base course and new asphalt down on there. There are some places there that you're going to see that it's done with chip seal. So basically, and those streets were like long roads, like across the river, places like that. down in Rodeo Arena Road, we're figured just with chip seal and no sidewalk or curb and gutter and that type. Chip seal isn't considered on the aspect of that, so anything that we do with chip seal doesn't require us to meet the ADA stuff on there. So that's why those figures are bounced in there like that. Once again, if you take that and we hired a contractor, you can probably bump that up to that's probably a third of the cost, and then so there'd probably be another 2/3 times that, so that we can make if we hired contractors out and hired a job out to do this.
Thank you, Don. And Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, so the analysis at the very end shows about $24 million to make all these improvements. And again, that's just an estimated figure. And so obviously that's, a little bit more than what unfortunately we have at this time, even our capacity to do that. I mean, there's always a possibility of a GO bond, property tax to be put out, but that would be a significant increase to be able to pay down a debt that size. I mean, I think we all know what the debt service payment is for the hospital, and that's a $30 million project. So the other option, of course, it's, we have at least the goal of what we would like to do and the cost, but we also have an opportunity right now. We have an application with the Water Trust Board, I believe, Tracy, for water line replacement. And this might be a smaller scale project to follow up on what Commissioner Clark has numerous occasions suggested about doing, if we're going to go in and do a road, what about the sewer, what about the water? Now, the application that we have submitted identifies streets in Marshall, North Pershing, 2nd Avenue, Sierra Vista. And so what I asked Don is to give us at least a cost estimate of what it would take to do the road in that same area that we would replace the water lines. And we're looking at about a little bit above $380,000. So, and that's just if we are successful with the water line. We can do, we would use that funding for the water line. We would identify funding for this part of the road, which would replace the road. And we still don't have figures for the sewer line, if we want to do that as well. But this would also be kind of a good pilot project to try to address all of these different infrastructure items in one area that is already identified funding for water, possibly the streets, and now we just need to identify the sewer. Again, it's a smaller scale project than what we would have hoped, but ultimately the goal would be having a package funding or amount that will be recurring every year, so that the street department can go out and every year and do significant amount of work. It would, ideally, the goal would be giving the streets department $200,000 every year just to do repaving every year. That's more than what we currently have, because we use local government road fund, and that only takes us so long. But again, to Commissioner's point, that would be a great pilot project to try to see if we can cobble all of these different sources to do all of the infrastructure items.
Thank you, Manager Fuentes, for remembering that the cart before the horse doesn't do us any good. So we're back to, I think this is really great that we know what the cost to repave and put sidewalks in throughout our entire city. I think it's brilliant. I would love to see something that has every street redoing all of the main water delivery lines. I'd like to see the same map have the sewer lines. I'd like to see what would happen, and I'd throw this out at Bo, but what if we did bury power lines? Would that be a good way to go? What if we buried T111 lines, or do we still use those? But if we're going to repave something, it seems to me, when I've talked to some old water department people retired, one of their biggest complaints is that when you have to dig up the asphalt to repair something that's 70 years old, why aren't we taking it from point A all the way down the street to point B? And I'll use the example right out here. Why is from Foch all the way down to 8th Street not dug up, a brand new line put in, so that you aren't going to be looking at digging that up again for another 50, 70 years. So I'm glad that that's the kind of the mentality that we're taking on here. And I think the idea of just like taking a street and having all those components and saying, do we want to do a street at a time and which one's the most critical one to put together is a brilliant idea. So thank you, Mr. Armijo, for putting this together for us. It really does kind of help. It's a starting point, really good starting point. Thank you, Mayor.
It's Halloween early, it's scary. Any other comments? I'd like to, so, to Commissioner Clark's point, where do we get the money from? So, I know you've heard this before, so please bear with me. 1/8 of 1% in our budget is set aside for infrastructure for streets only. And that's approximately, I'm going to think optimistically, because our GRT, depending on how quickly the hospital gets built, we had a spike because of the Alzheimer build-out at New Mexico Veterans Home. I'm going to say $150,000. Actually, we did the numbers, I beg your pardon, it's $140,000. And the local government road fund, which is a 75-25, we get about 50 grand, between 40 and 50 grand. So let's say we're at $190,000. If you go onto our budget, this is fiscal year 2017 to 2018, but it's predicated on 2016 final numbers. This is the T or C's municipal property tax. For residential, our value for all our homes is $61,328,549 at an operating tax rate of 0.001442. Out of every house in the city of Truth or Consequences, we take in $88,436. Non-residential is valued at $40,234,147 at a taxable operating rate of 0.002180. That gives us $87,710. It's a total of $176,000 less the collection rate, because we don't collect everything that we bill, and we all understand that. City has budgeted for this fiscal year that we're in $155,000. That is what we get from municipal property tax, and that goes into the general fund. I spoke to Sonia this morning before we came over, and she ran me some quick building cycle numbers. And my question was, so how many bills are residential and how many bills are non-residential? And we have 4,061 billable customers, I think it was 61 or 81, of which approximately 250 are commercial and the rest are all residential. Well, if you break down roughly 3,750 billable homes at 88 total $1,000, you're talking about 23 cents a day. Now, I get it. I understand that we are not a wealthy community, but we have leaking pipes, we have leaking sewer pipes, leaking potable water pipes, we have roads that look like third world cities, we've got potholes. I mean, I was talking to our building inspector, Robbie Travis, this morning, and we were looking out on McAdoo. I said, my God, it's an embarrassment to bring people into our community. He said, yeah, it's a challenge because you got the geothermal waters. And correct me if I'm wrong, Robbie, you got the geothermal waters right below that, which keeps on degrading the road, and you just have to stay on top of it and stay on top of it. And that costs money. So where's the money going to come from? Someone mentioned they thought we were about 10,000 or 8,000 population. No, we're at 6,000 less census, 6,400. And we don't even know if we're increasing or decreasing. Maybe a survey of our electrical customers, we would know if we're losing more than we're gaining or we're gaining more than we're losing. But if we're spending all this money with a new position for tourism, We created a mechanism that program could be paid for not on the backs of our citizens by a 1% convention fee. We're trying to build back our population. We're trying to get more GRT into the community so we have a less reliance on our electric department. Thank you, Bo. What do? You present a great table, and right now our table don't look so good. I'm sorry, that is the truth. That is the God-given truth. We don't look so good. So why, we're in competition. If someone wants to live in New Mexico, we're in competition with every other community in the state. We've got some incredible assets. Assets that when I travel around representing the city at different conferences, other mayors would kill for. Believe me, they would absolutely kill to have the marketable assets that we have. And yet we invite people in here to take a look at us, and you keep on making excuses. Every time I show people around, all I am doing is making excuses over and over and over again. And I'll continue to make those excuses as long as I have a breath in my body. But we as a city, we as a community have got to decide what our role in the universe is and how we're going to get there and how we're going to keep our people happy and not have a drain on our citizens. Lack of job, lack of qualified workforce, that's something else. But still, how do we do it? Where is the money going to come from? If we were to take a look at increasing our local residential property tax, work it out, formulaically, that we got another $150,000. That's all we're looking for, is $150,000 from our citizens to let us start this project. To Commissioner Clark's point, take a small section. Let's do it. Let's see that we can do it. And let's do it next year, and the next year, and the next year. And I know that I've heard through the rumor mill, it's a small community, Manager Fuentes, that there is someone down in Mr. Pierce's office who has asked the city to get in contact with them to see if there is money at the federal level for infrastructure. And I had always thought that was highways and roads and tunnels and airports and these real big, visible things. And evidently there is going to be some money, from what I've been given to understand, put aside for rural America. Because that's what put President Trump into Washington. It was rural America. It wasn't the big states on the coasts. And so therefore he has an obligation, I believe, to help support rural America. And if we are ready, shovel ready, if we've done our analysis on how much it's going to cost, at least maybe we can work with Pierce's office and see if we can get a taste out of Washington. But they're going to want to know, I believe, what are you doing for yourself? How are you helping yourself? We can't write the 100% of that check. It's not realistic. You've got to have buy-in, meaning you, your community, has got to have buy-in. So I'm asking my fellow commissioners, I don't know the answer. I wish I did. And I wish I knew an easy way to come up with money, but I don't. But whatever we decide to do, I think it's got to be with the acceptance of the citizens of our community that we represent, to make this community better as we move forward within the confines of our financial capabilities. I mean, I was totally amazed that all the houses only generate $88,000, and a lot of those houses have cars and trucks, and guess what? They're the ones that are using the roads. Tell me that if there's a pothole in front of your house and Don's team fixes it, tell me your property values just went down? I don't think so. I don't think so in the least. But we have got to come to some plan, and we don't have it. We just kind of kick the can down the road. And I think to Mayor Pro Tem's point before, she was asking for a plan. Where are we going with the pool? Where are we going with our roads? I mean, Manager Fuentes and his team can only do so much in Santa Fe. I've heard there's not going to be any capital outlay, or if there is, I heard yesterday there's going to be $25 million, split a third for the governor, a third for the House, and a third for the Senate. That's roughly $8 million. That's nothing. And the governor wants big signature projects, so when she moves on after she's turned out and goes on in the political world, she can point to things and say, I was responsible for that, I was responsible for that. They're not going to give us money for roads. It's just not going to happen. It's a wish, but it's not reality. So, you've heard me yang long enough and often enough on this, but boy, I would like to do something. And I appreciate, at least in our budget, we've got some money to start doing some of the roads around City Hall, I understand. But there's more to our community than just City Hall. So, any thoughts, comments? You want to think about it and bring it back at a discussion? I know it's no one wants to raise taxes. I understand it. I get it. But show me another way.
So, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, in regards to the numbers you were referring to on the property tax, now, if the Commissioner wants to consider either, you can consider action now in regards to those taxes of the mills, or when we start going through the budget process in the preliminary, that's also can be done and taken care and can be addressed. There's a certain amount of mill tax levy that we can impose by simply commission action through the budget process, or just by any formal action at a meeting that wouldn't require a bond or anything sort of election. So it is if that is an option, just know that you can do it at any time, or you can do it at the budget process. It's by merely action of the commission to increase the mill levies that we currently are collecting.
With that in mind, Commissioner, Manager, I just made you a Commissioner, Manager Fuentes, do you have any idea when you're going to hear from the Water Board? I mean, is there a time thing that we'll know if we're going to get that $1.2 million or whatever it is? I think it's $1.2 million if I'm not mistaken, something like that.
We have a presentation at the Water Trust Board on the 24th, I believe it is, of this month. That will be to take the next step in the application, which is the readiness application. As far as the decisions, if we make that step after that, I believe that isn't until May. It is kind of a long process through Water Trust Board.
So to Commissioner Clark's, what Commissioner Clark was talking about, if we were to pass something, just something, a concept, not necessarily nickels and dimes or where the money's going to come from, but a concept that they see where would that help you with your presentation? Or do you have enough
Probably not, because the
material
presentations are due within the next couple days to get on the agenda. So I think our presentation's pretty much complete.
Okay.
We just need to present it to Manager Fuentes and go over it with him.
And if I may add, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I think what we can certainly communicate to the Water Trust Board is that we are working on identifying other sources of revenue, to Commissioner Clark's point of trying to do all-in-one kind of a project.
Right.
So if we let them know we're applying, but yet we're also, on top of that, we're going to be seeking funding for the replacing of the water lines, of the sewer lines and the street, then we can communicate that, because in essence, that's what the whole discussion has been. They don't necessarily need to have that commitment in writing saying, well, do you have it, is it a guarantee? But at least we can communicate that.
Correct.
Okay, excellent. Any further comments, ideas? Just sticking with it. Anyone like to make any type of a motion?
If we make a motion now, then the mill levy, would that affect and Mayor Pro Tem, you might help me with this one, when the mill levies are changed on the property tax billings, When is that done on a cyclical basis during the year? Because I know
I
they're
think
due
this
November,
year's tax,
May.
this year's tax rate should already be out.
Okay.
So this wouldn't go into effect until next year.
Next
So
year, November?
Next year, October is usually when they receive their new tax rates.
So we've got some time to really
Right.
pull this together. There's no urgency to
No,
do
because
this
it
today.
wouldn't go into effect until next year if it goes.
That's the important part. Then I would say, Mayor, that we've got a few months to really kind of get some more of our ducks in order to see exactly what an extra little bit of mill levy could do to help us do this all-in-one project, which we can now rename it thanks to our manager.
And Commissioner Clark, to your point, and I'm not 100% sure of this because I asked the question as the answer was coming in, the person was picking up the phone and talking on the phone and giving me an answer at the same time. But I believe our municipal tax rate has not been increased for 28 years. And a lot has happened in 28 years.
A lot's disintegrated.
That's what I meant.
Property tax rate.
Right. The municipal,
Yeah.
not the property tax rate, but the municipal property tax rate. I was thinking, does that kind of sound, Mayor Pro Tem, does that sound reasonable to you?
Right.
That I heard was 2020.
Yeah,
and
it's been a long time.
Yeah, and everything has happened, and it's not happened for the, some things have happened for the good in our community, but the infrastructure is just washing away underneath our feet, literally. So, Commissioner Clark, am I hearing that you might maybe make a motion to postpone any decision on this, but start a process to move, to take a look at identifying different funding entities and to start this small, that Manager Fuentes alluded to,
The
small
all-in-one
pilot,
project.
the all-in-one project. Is that
You just worded it fine, yes.
So I have a motion by worded it fine, and I need a second.
I'll second that
I have a
motion.
second by Mayor Pro Tem Weigel. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Discussion action H4, Night Sky Friendly Lighting Program. Commissioner Clark.
Mr. Easley, can you come up here and help me for a minute, please? So, as you remember, the last meeting, Mr. Easley and I were talking to you about Night Sky Protection Act had been signed into law in the state, and so we were giving you some information about what we needed and didn't need to do, and we were tasked with coming up with some verbiage to put into a letter format to provide to you to see how you feel about it, as basically an information to the public on what can and can't be done for night sky lighting. And Mr. Easley's assistant, Tammy, sent me some stuff, so I kind of compiled this, and I'm going to read it and correct me if anything came out incorrect. But this is a letter on Truth or Consequences letterhead, and it will be termed the New Mexico Night Friendly Lighting Program, and it will read as follows. On April 6, 1999, Governor Gary Johnson signed the Night Sky Protection Act into law to regulate outdoor lighting to preserve and enhance the state's dark sky while promoting safety, conserving energy, and preserving environment astronomy. In section 7412.4, it states that all outdoor lighting fixtures installed after January 1, 2000 shall be shielded and meet the lowest horizontal lighting specs. The exceptions are incandescent fixtures of 150 watts or less and other sources of 70 watts or less. In section 7412.6, it states that outdoor lighting fixtures existing and legally installed prior to the effective date of the Night Sky Protection Act may remain in service. However, when existing lighting fixtures become unrepairable, their replacements are subject to all the provisions of the Night Sky Protection Act. Many cities in New Mexico have accelerated light replacements. This is possible. Rates are adjusted to pass the cost on to the public through rate hikes approved by the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission. Two other options exist. One is to allow the city to gradually replace the failing lights at the city's maintenance expenses, which is the current method. Or two, a member or members of the public may purchase through the city approved lights to replace those in their affected areas. Current costs for shielded lights range from $97 to $150 each. If you have any questions, please forward them to the City Utility Department at 505 Sims 575-894-6671. How did it go?
Perfect.
Any comments?
Any comments?
Then if you're in favor of this, we'll go ahead and get it drafted up and make it a permanent part of information from the utility office.
Commissioner Clark and Bo, thank you for putting this in. I think there was a misunderstanding of this law and where the responsibility lay with who, the private citizen or the government, and I think that clarifies it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy, too.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tammy did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, would someone like to make a motion? I'll make a motion first, let me ask you a question. Was the intent to put it in the utility bills? Was that, or just keep it on record at City Hall?
I understood that a little note could be put on the utility bills if you're interested in the New Mexico Lighting Program. There's information at the utility office.
Okay.
My understanding was that part of the discussion said that this could be like when somebody turns on their utilities in town or moves into town or wants an information packet or
Right,
whatever. I think that was
right.
yours. But this would just be some information available to the public through the utility office. No requirements, but at least we now have something in writing that we can hand to anybody who asks that question. Is that my understanding?
Good, okay. So, any further? Anyone like to make a little bit of a motion?
I'll make my own
Go ahead,
motion.
I was going to say, you're up.
Since we did it.
Yeah.
I would like to move that we approve the letter composed by Commissioner Clark and the Utility Department with respect to the New Mexico Night Sky Protection Act.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Clark. I need a second.
I second that
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Thank you. Before we move on to new business, does any commissioner want to take a 2 to 3 minute break?
Yes.
All right. We will adjourn. We'll be back in business in 3 minutes. Watch us run. We're going to be back in session. We are back in session. Thank you very much. The next item is a discussion action request to relocate SCRTA to the fire station at 301 East 9th Street. And our presenter is our Fire Chief, Mr. Paul Tooley.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you, and good morning. Just real quickly, a little house cleaning item here that we did not receive the funding for our application on the aerial grant that we applied for last year. There was 10,000 applications and about $2.1 billion that was asked for, and we didn't quite make the cut. So we're going to, next month it comes back out to do again, and we're actually going to start over and we'll massage our data and put it back in for another year. So didn't quite make that one. Anyway, today I just want to present something to you as an option to provide to the SCRTA board the option of moving the dispatch center to the fire department. The first slide here is the regional dispatch center is currently at 100 North Date Street there, and it was actually started as a PSAP in 1996 in that building, so it hasn't moved since 1996. In 2001, we actually built a new complex that was part of an EOC dispatch center and the fire department at 310 East 9th Street. And what I'm going to show you here is a presentation to show you how SCRTA can move into this facility immediately. It's already built, it's already ready to go. We've actually moved out a part of the fire station that we were occupying at the time. Now I'll show you real quickly. Find the laser on here. Whoops. This is the original plans from when we built back in 2001. So our truck bay, and then we occupy all of this area. What we've done is the dispatch and the part for the radio room and so forth, along with the bathrooms and the kitchen. We're going to show you how, by taking this one hallway here, one side of the building, that we can have an option for SCRTA. One of the main issues that we have in the old building on Date Street, of course, it's built in 1923, was actually the original school building. So we have a lot of electrical issues, a lot of wiring issues over the years that have been put in play that just are kind of a nightmare for SCRTA to operate under today. Some of the main trunk lines and circuits, power issues at the dispatch centers. So a lot of this has been adding up. As time goes on, new technology comes in and just more and more power is needed and more electricity. So currently we have a 400 amp capacity at the new fire station on 9th Street, which is plenty. I don't even think we use a fraction of that in our current operations, but we're already pre-wired and ready to go with a 400 amp circuit. The current dispatch station is 320 square feet. The place that we have at the new fire station is 400 square feet, so it's a little bit bigger, about 80 square feet bigger. It's already ready to go. This is a current picture of it. The only thing I got left to do is actually wax the floors for them, if that's what they want to go to. The current radio room is 192 square feet, and this is the back portion of the radio room. The majority of the radio on one side of the building, they're actually having to use, or in the room, and actually having to use part of that for storage. The radio room at the fire station is 300 square feet, which is much bigger than what they currently have. Everything's already plumbed. We already have plumbing that comes in through some piping that brings in phone lines at the current time. So a lot of this is already in play and ready to go. Their current kitchen area is about 120 square feet, a little bitty spot between dispatch and the radio room. It's their little getaway, I guess. The fire station kitchen that we have that they'll be able to co-use with us is 680 square feet. Commercial kitchen, all the facilities, everything that I already need already built. The current director's office is about 115 square feet. What we're going to do is we'll show you how we're going to take one of the pantries off of the kitchen area, actually make that the director's 190 square feet. So an increase in size as there. What's nice too is the men's and women's rooms both have showers. They're 190 square feet each. They already have full facilities with a shower for both the men and the women's. I overlaid the red area here, and then what I did is I co-located the kitchen and the bathroom. We will co-locate with them. They will be used for the fire department as well as dispatch. But to isolate this area that we need for their security and for them to be able to operate on, what we're going to do is we're going to build, or have them, we're going to look at putting a hallway. Instead of coming right into the station, going right in the truck bay, we'll actually put a door here. So we'll have a hallway to allow us to come directly in and go directly to the truck bay. So the hallway will actually have some more security for them before they actually get into the hallway. The hallway that's there, this is the main corridor that you see down through there. At the end here will be a door for the Mickey's office, and then of course then the doorway for the bathrooms, and then the dispatch center. There is no door. The only way to get into the radio room is through the dispatch center, which makes it even more secure, so we don't have any way to get into that area. Then looking back towards the kitchen from this hallway, we're actually right here where these two doors are. We will just put a door in the hallway here with a combo security lock like we currently have everywhere else. So that'll allow us to come through this doorway to go to the bathroom or the kitchen and then be able to get back into our facility. But what it'll also allow them to do is to use our training room. If they have any training exercises or anything that they need to do, they can use the other part of the building during the times that we're not there. And usually we're there at least on a minimum once a week for a few hours during our training, and then in and out during fire calls and so forth. So we would add a door right here to help isolate this hallway. This is the current generator that they currently have to operate their system. It looks worse than it actually is. It's just mostly of the faded around the exterior part. But it is an older generator. This is an automatic generator. When they lose power, it goes immediately on the battery, and then the generator fires up and switches over. We currently have that already in our facility running on natural gas. So this generator here at the fire station, it is a manual that can be converted to automatic easily. But this automatically runs the entire operation that we currently have off natural gas now. And then we were able to pick up the new generator, an old generator that's actually new to us from MERB as well. So this generator is currently sitting in the back. It's not hooked up to anything. It's just we come in there and start it every couple of weeks to make sure that it's up to date. And we also have the automatic battery system that's down in MERB that can be transported up here. The current parking area behind the old school is definitely not only, weekends they pretty much have it to themselves, but during the week, of course, all the parking for the county employees and so forth. So, and it is an old playground since I even went to school there back in the day. So it's been converted into a parking lot. Of course, we have some issues with propane tanks, so there are some obstacles in there. The new fire station up on 9th Street has plenty of parking that allows us all the way to Cedar Street. So no matter how much room we need to allocate for dispatch, we have plenty of room. Also, there's a back entrance that gets them into the kitchen. So in the parking area, they do have another secure door that they go into, or they can go into without going through the front. So there's two ways in, through the front and the back. Also have the ability to put 10-foot expansion on for storage or other offices. We've already measured this out. I actually had a contractor come by and just give us kind of a rough idea what we're looking for if we needed to add on to that area. So without moving the gas lines, we got about another 10 feet if we wish to add on to the building. The other thing that's nice about this site is we got a direct line of sight back to the radio tower. Currently, they sit down here, down on by the Arroyo. This is just up the road and out of the floodplain area, but it still allows them to send the signal directly to Tank Hill. This was currently from FEMA, just kind of showing you this main Arroyo area that runs through the golf course and city area. This is always an issue when it comes to major flooding. And then, of course, if we have some flooding down the Rio Grande, the possibility of this even backing up. So the new station, of course, sits off here off of 9th Street outside that area. So the idea here is we're still in business there at SCRTA, but with having the facility and the radio room and the dispatch room already cleaned out and ready to go, they can continue to operate today as we can even start today or tomorrow if they wanted to start moving in equipment, new furniture, 911 trunks, whatever radios, whatever equipment that they needed to move in. The possibility would be that they have their option at the fire station. So that is the end of my presentation. I will stand for any questioning if anybody has them.
Thank you, Chief Tully. Commissioner Heschler, I saw you waving at me.
So, Chief Tully, if I understand correctly, today you're just asking for this to be one of the considerations, not the only option that we possibly could have.
Correct. This is an option that we would like to present as fire department to SCRTA as one of the options to say, hey, here's a facility already built. Here's some options for you.
Okay. I spent some time yesterday with Director Howard as well as Sheriff Hamilton in the dispatch center. Is it appropriate this time, Mayor, to ask Ms. Howard to answer a couple of questions?
I think it is, as long as you have someone in authority here, and Ms. Howard is the executive director. So,
do you mind, Mr. Tully?
No, not at all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, and thank you for yesterday. It was very informative for me, and in fact, I changed some of my presentation I was going to give today based upon the information I received yesterday. But what is the length of time that you can stay currently in your dispatch center if nothing were done and we weren't going to make any changes for a while?
SCRTA's on a short rope here. One of our major issues right now is the electrical system. We are in dire need for a new 911 system. The current electrical is not going to be able to sustain that, a newer system. I have been in talks with Department of Finance Authority, DFA, and they have given me direction that, yes, we need a new system. We need a lot of new, and that they will fund that sooner if before we have a failure. Hopefully we won't have a failure. DFA did a tour of SCRTA, I think this was last month, and we were all we all concurred that putting a new system is just not sufficient in the current building that we're in. It is an older building, it does have issues, and it's just not sustainable for a 911 dispatch center. Electrical is one of our #1 big issues right now.
Do we have a chance to lose the ability to upgrade if we don't put it in, if we don't move right away, or?
It's not as much, SCRTA has been needing a new 911 system, a newer system for a while. As how DFA and the 911 funds do work is that we're all put on a schedule. Our next schedule is actually coming up next fiscal year, that no issues, you'll get your new system. But since our system was installed back in 2006, with 2012 there was a full hardware upgrade. The system is now obsolete. It's near impossible to get parts for. Some vendors saying they'll have to go on eBay sometimes to look for these parts. So we've had some failures in the past that's all documented with my maintenance contract company that works on my 911 system. It's a ticking time bomb with our system. We're just piecemealing her together. You know, we knock on wood and hope she stays together. So after going with DFA and talking to Venture, who is my contractor that maintains my 911 system, everybody's finally come to a conclusion we may not make it till next fiscal year. So I'm up for upgrade next fiscal year, so I won't lose it next fiscal year. But it would be nice for the community, for Sierra County, to be on the safer side, to go ahead and start planning and quoting on getting this system built now.
Ms. Hart, my concern is that if you know, this is one of our options, one of the other options is to ask SCRTA to move into the new law enforcement complex that we have anticipated to build in the future. However, I'm concerned that this law enforcement complex will not be done in the next 2 years. It may be 2 to 3 years before we get it done. Could SCRTA in its present situation survive where it is for the next 2 years?
On a personal, I don't think she'll survive in the next couple of years. We got to do what we've got to do, you know, and that's what we're doing now, is we're maintaining. We have options. The fire department, which is actually a faster option, minimal, cost, with just some remodeling and all that, that we can move in before fiscal year if funding comes through and all of that. We can move in, being the fact that if the SCRTA board, and I don't have say over that, it's my SCRTA board. If they were to say they looked at the options, this is one of the options, I can notify DFA and say we do have a building now, the newer equipment and new furniture, because DFA is also going to pay for new dispatch consoles, which is close to $100,000 for a 6-station console. We can start designing and moving and getting the electrical and getting everything ready in a new building while still dispatching out of the current SCRTA, and it's just a matter of a flip of the switch when we can go into the new one where there's no disruption of services. The current 911 system that's in SCRTA right now will not survive a move to any other facility. It cannot be shut down and moved. It more likely will not start up again. And that includes our new radio systems, or it includes the old radio systems in there now.
Okay. And do you have other options that you're considering now?
My board has instructed me to go look at other options, and I am building a presentation as well, which will include Mr. Tooley's presentation of the fire department, of some other buildings. I've looked at one in Elephant Butte. It's a nice facility at cost, but my concern is I want to keep SCRTA in the city of Tier C, which is neutral for all departments. I don't want to strain the chief's officers having to go out of district to pick up paperwork or whatever that's there. There is another building up the street. There's just a couple of buildings. I don't want to get 5, 10 and just overwhelm my board with all of these options. I want to just narrow it down to 2 to 3 options and what will best work for SCRTA.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Frank, please.
Chief, should SCRTA move into the fire station, what or any benefits would there be to the fire station for it to be manned 24 hours a day?
Well, for us as a volunteer, it doesn't help us out, other than we just know somebody's near the same building where the trucks are. Down the road, as far as our ISO, if we ever move to on-duty staff, having them in the same building is definitely a help for our ISO rating. we only got one spot to go, and that's to Class 1, so we'd have to get a little bit to get there, but having that ability, there is some options for improvement in ISO rating, having, at least improvements in the communication side, having them in the facility.
Thank you.
Any other?
Mr. Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem?
Chief Tooley, when the fire station was first built on 9th Street, the intent was a safety complex, right? Not just a fire station.
Oh, exactly, that whole entire block back at the end of 99 into 2000 era, right there. That whole complex was set up for that. So the fire station just happened to be the first one. We were able to get funding through capital outlay and do a block grant and be able to put the fire station there. Eventually, they wanted to dispatch the police department and everybody at that location. So that's where it was back in 2001.
Thank you. Oh, another question. Currently, there's fees, correct? You pay rental fees, do you pay utilities? What type of fees do you pay, or, excuse me, Ms. Howard, does SCRTA pay at this time for the rental of the building that you're currently in? Do you pay rent to the county? Do you pay utilities? Do you pay anything? And what would it cost? What would we charge? That would be where Mr. Tooley would come in. What would we have to pay as far as the city to be housed in the fire department?
Currently at SCRTA now at 100 North State, I pay all my own utilities. I'm metered separate. My meters are separate. I pay my own electrical. I do not pay rent. The county does not charge SCRTA rent. What I pay the county is for my fiscal agent, for being my fiscal agent. But as far as being in the building, I don't pay rent. We're pretty much kind of, I pay all my utilities that way. Everything's metered separately. And we did discuss that, Mr. Tooley and I, if this was a consideration that we talked about doing the same there, we would meter ourselves.
Well, we have another option that metered. What I did is I went back 7 years on our usage for electricity as volunteers. So we have X number of kilowatt hours we use a month, period, no matter what it is. So even if we, depending on the expense of dual metering, what we would do is we would say we would pay this number of kilowatt hours every month, no matter what you guys, the rest of it's up to them to pay the rest of it. So there's some other options that, we've looked at. We just have been kicking tires mostly just as an option to be able to have a facility they can move to.
SCRTA's utilities are budgeted every year, so I'm on my own when it comes to her utilities. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how soon could this be ready if SCRTA board was to decide that this was the option that they wanted to take? How soon would it be ready for them to move in and be operable?
I think the first part of this is the ability for them to start moving equipment in. They could start that today if they had to, because those rooms are already ready to go, especially the radio room. So the 911 equipment, everything else, they could start moving furniture. They could do all of that in there. The minor things like the hallway and some doors and so forth, we could get done in a matter of a few weeks. We figured what we were looking at, just as a rough idea, without adding on to the building at all, we're looking, I would say probably after a contractor came in and I had some come through just to show them what we wanted, 20 to 25 grand would get everything done that they needed to do to move into, without adding on to the structure.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes, Commissioner Clark.
Chief Tooley, where are you going to get that $25,000?
Well, we wouldn't do that. That would come
be
from
yours.
that would come from the
And
GRT.
you have some money in the bank, if I remember correctly.
We do. We have reserves, and there's a little bit more to it, whether if SCRTA had to go out for a loan to do a wraparound, because I think I presented to the board a couple of months ago that we need new radios.
Right.
And so if we're going to move into a new facility, we would go out for loan for not just remodeling, but put those radios in there as well, so we can get the radios installed. And as far as on the waxing the floors and stuff, we still have to, as a 911 dispatch center, I have to put in static-free carpet. I have to go by, the Homeland Security issues as far as a 911 dispatch center and what we have to place in there. No, not in the radio room, but as far as where my dispatch is. So the money wouldn't come from the city as far as for the remodeling and all that. The SCRTA board would be paying for whatever we need to do inside of that building.
Okay. Two other questions, please. I heard, unless I misunderstood the first round, that the 911 equipment wouldn't survive the move from where it currently is.
No, ma'am.
So, Chief Tooley, we wouldn't be able to move the current 911, but you're on the docket for 911 new equipment next year, correct?
Actually,
Or
I
sooner
am
than
on the,
that?
I am on the cycle for next fiscal, but I have already been in discussion with DFA and have the email saying, I've already been instructed to get my quotes now and,
So
start
sooner
the
than
process.
later.
It'll be sooner than later.
So the last question I have is, if you're not paying rent and you're paying your own utilities, what's the advantage to being at the fire department, in your estimation, as opposed to this new safety complex? I mean, I get the 911 equipment, but if, let's say that the new safety complex was already built, what would the value of one over the other be to you? That's a hard question.
No, it actually was a board ruling, several months ago. Manager Fuentes was there, and the chief is on my board. The board, members had voted not to go with the complex at this time. The remodeling part, and I'm not saying this is the building we're going to, but as an option when we were looking at the finances and all, fire department is, as far as the remodeling and the design, is obviously a little bit more set for dispatch right now, and so the finances of remodeling it is going to be a lot lower or less than what the complex was going to be at the time. We didn't have an exact amount. I did talk to the commissioner yesterday about, you know, he wanted to revisit that, and he talked with my chair, which is Sheriff Hamilton. I as a director, I do operations. I don't have a say as where, you know, how we're going to move forward with that. And if that he would like to bring that back up to the board as being one of the other options, then, you know, let's bring it back up, since we're on a plan now that we've got to move. The biggest, I think, was the time frame. Even 2 years, which is a short period of time for what y'all are going to do to the complex, is actually a long time for Skirta to survive where she's at now. I don't believe my 911 system is going to hold up longer than 2 years.
Thank you.
Any other considerations? Chief, I have a question.
Sure.
I've heard Ms. Howard say that it is a board decision, ultimately, where the new home of Skirta is going to be.
Yes, sir.
That being said, I appreciate your effort to come before the commission, but this commission is not on the board, and Manager Fuentes is not a voting member of this commission. He's a voting member of your board. Why are you asking permission from this commission or support for this commission to consider or move it into the firehouse when we don't have that power on that board?
I think really the issue here, Mayor, is just more of giving you the information saying, can we proceed with this as an offer to the commission? I mean, if you were to come back and say, no, we don't want them in that building, then I wouldn't offer it to them. I think, I know that it's ultimately their decision.
Yeah, we don't have that power. That's why I'm hung up here.
We own the building.
It's technically a city building, so,
Okay.
so the issue is, yes, so the issue is for you to say, shall we proceed or not?
Got it, okay. So I do have a couple quick questions. I heard a minimal cost of $100,000. I also heard a loan for remodeling. Is that eventually, do you foresee that money being, that your customers, such as the police department, the fire department, the hospital, the city of TRC, Elephant View, Williamsburg, and other customers that I probably can't even think about, the sheriff's department, for example, are you going to ask, let's just talk about TRC right now.
Yes.
Are you going to come back at some particular point and ask us to increase our financial contribution to Skirta to cover the cost of fixing it up and the loan repayment?
I can't give exact numbers. I'm not a contractor. How much it's going to cost to remodel the fire department or to remodel another building. You know, if this was given an option, then that's when we would bring in, that's when we would bring contractors in to give us an exact price, or go out, an RFP to do the contract on whatever building it's gonna be. But say, I'm gonna go high numbers. Say it's $100,000, just a set number. I would go out for loan with that, even if it's just $50,000. I believe right now, on our current, we would do the New Mexico finance. Yes, we would probably use the GRT towards that. But I feel that we've had left, at this point, we're building up a reserve slowly but surely with the GRT, that there will be a portion of that GRT that can pay towards that loan that won't, I don't see a huge increase to your contributions. I think the GRT could sustain what she's doing now to alleviate, its portion of the contributions and on top of pay for that loan. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Say it's a $45,000 a year loan. I'm just throwing numbers out there. I'm not a professional. I think the GRT sustaining itself where your contributions are staying level and with a slight increase, or if our GRTs go up, then your contributions may still go down.
So is DFA, you talked about, did I hear you say they're going to fund you 100%?
The 911 funds,
yeah.
yes, sir. The 911 funds, what they fund 100% is my 911 system.
Okay.
Which can cost up to $300,000. You got to remember what I'm doing here. I'm a 4-station dispatch center right now, and DFA, with the meeting we had, and I had asked to do this in the future anyways, we're going to go from a 4-station to a 6-station dispatch center, because I have to put the future of growth in there. The busier we are, and I can tell you right now, our call volume is going up, that in the future we would add more dispatchers for our call volume. DFA is going to pay for the 6th system, the 6th position 911 system. They pay 100% of that. They are also paid for all brand new furniture, all of our dispatch consoles. That's what the 911 funds are for. So that's what you pay out of the surcharge on your telephones and your cell phones. So that does not come out of SCRTA's pocket.
Thank you for the clarification on that. Any further questions?
One more comment.
Sure, Commissioner Heschler. Absolutely.
Chief Tully, if this board considers authorizing this building today, I would hope that you would wait long enough that our chief and our city manager could additionally present to the board if they have any additional changes they want to make to the law enforcement complex, or if there's any negotiations to be done, additional negotiations to be done to make a move to allow SCRTA to be able to move into the law enforcement complex. I understand time may be critical here, and that may preclude that from happening. But I think, as I told you, I come from a law enforcement background, and I worked in a police station where the dispatch center was inside that building. And the ability for our officers to work hand in glove with dispatchers for immediate access to information and being able to discuss things right there on site was really important to us. And things may have changed, I don't know. But to me, that still is the best option that we have if it's viable. If it's not viable, obviously we're gonna figure that out. So I would hope that you wait long enough that we still have an opportunity for our city manager and our chief to make that presentation to the SCRTA board, and then they can of course make the decision, and if that's the case, we'll have to abide by their decision at that time.
Yeah, I think that, and I think a lot of this is just to have another option on the table for them at this time. I mean, we're getting down, they're in a building that's almost 100 years old already, and we're pushing the time, especially as long as it's been in there, and the electricity issues and everything else of that old building.
Commissioner Heschler, are you suggesting then that if we were to make a motion to let them go ahead and consider the fire building as an option, that we also add the safety complex as an option too, and ask them to look at both of them and have that we own those 2 buildings. One doesn't exist yet except for on paper, but we would be happy to make both of those offers to the SCRTA board. Am I kind of hearing something like that?
I think so. I think that's very important. In addition to the other options that you may have, for instance, finding other buildings within the community and things of that nature. I know that you've been tasked to do that. So all options are on the table. I just don't want to jump the gun or move ahead too quickly. As the chief indicated, they can move stuff in tomorrow. I don't want that to happen. You know, but I do want us to make sure that we do all our homework and we have the best option for our facilities, for this entire community, and that's really what I'm hoping for.
So if we just did it that way, like we suggested, we have two buildings, one on paper and one existing, would like to present them to the SCRTA board as both viable options for you to consider.
Yes, Commissioner, like Mr. Pulley, this was an option. If what he was coming for to this city commission was, this is one of the options, we need permission, or not permission, but you'd have to vote saying, if the SCRTA board had all of these options and it narrowed it down to the fire department, that the city is already on board, giving, yes, SCRTA can move into it. We don't want to go through, we don't want to backtrack and say, we want to move in the fire department, and the city did not know about that or have any discussion over it. There's going to be 2 or 3 options, 4 options, and if the SCRTA board looked at everything as a whole, and this happened to be one of them, the city is already on board saying, we're moving, we can move forward with the fire department.
Well, speaking for myself, I would be okay with that if, once the board has made the decision, that they would come back to this commission and ask for that final okay. And, you know, and perhaps then we could revisit it at that time. I mean, I hope I'm making myself clear here that I don't mind allowing you to go ahead and proceed, offering that to the board, but once the board makes the decision, whatever that decision is going to be, come back to this commission and ask for final permission to do it.
Most definitely, Commissioner. I think, like we had discussed yesterday, that after I have my presentation, this will be part of the presentation. I'm more than willing to bring whatever options, all the options back to, so you can know where we're at and what the board is going to decide. You're part of it. Manager Fuentes and Chief, who's my vice chair, they're going to be part of all of this decision making while it's going ahead. But we still want to present to the commission, all of the cities and the village, this is what we're looking at, this is where we're going. You know, it's not just going to be the city of TRC, it'll be Elephant Butte, Williamsburg, the county.
Okay. And I just have one final question for Manager Fuentes. Do you have any concerns about this building being used in this capacity?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Heschler, no, I don't have any concerns. It appears that the space is available. The only question from my standpoint, obviously, it's always finances and making sure that our police department is not impacted with additional contribution, because SCRTA does have significant amount of ending cash balance savings already there. And throughout the budget year, they don't use always a budget. You always budget more, but that doesn't necessarily mean you spend all the money. So that would be my only concern, is just additional fees increases to the police department for SCRTA services.
And just one final note, this has been cleared. I did clear this with State Fire Marshal's office. So their big concern is just make sure that it doesn't disrupt our day-to-day business. So that's why we make the provisions we did, but it is cleared through them.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one other comment, just as a follow-up on Commissioner Heschler's. We own both of the buildings. We own the fire station, and we would own the new law enforcement complex. SCRTA is a board that stands alone because they represent different municipalities throughout the county, and they are Sierra County. So I want them to understand and have that feeling of confidence that they don't need to make that decision that, yes, we're going to go into the new law enforcement complex when we'd rather go into the fire station, or we'd rather go to a different building. So we want the best judgment to be on the SCRTA board to be up and running as soon as possible with new equipment and new furniture. I have been to the SCRTA office, and, you know, my office was next door to SCRTA for many, many years. And I know how compact they are in there, and I know that they need the room, and they don't need it 2 years from now, they need it 6 months from now. So I want you to feel comfortable with whatever determination, and hopefully know that we as the city are backing you as a board.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitehead.
Ms. Howard, not to keep on beating this, I just have really two quick questions. The 100% funding from DFA for the 911 program or equipment that you
Yes, sir.
need, that is not site-specific. Okay, it's wherever your board decides.
Wherever my
to
PSAP
set up
is.
shop, that's where you're gonna get the money. Okay, and the second thing is that offer of 100% funding time-sensitive, or is that offer on the table forever until you make your decision where your new home is gonna be?
DFA knows that we're looking for another facility, and that's why we were in discussion saying, yeah, they don't want to put new, $300,000 equipment into the current building. If my 911 system crashes tomorrow, I'm not going to have a choice. It's going to have to go where it's going. But I'd like to let the commission know, if I do place a brand new $300,000 911 system into the current facility that SCRT is in now, if we do move into another building, it is going to cost us approximately $150,000 out of SCRT's pocket to move that equipment into another building. They will not pay to move that equipment. I have to pay for that.
Got it.
So, yes, DFA pays 100% of the new equipment. If we install it into the current building now, it will be up to SCRTA, which is all the entities, will have to come up with the money to move that into another facility, and it's a huge cost.
And just for my own edification, you say the county gives you rent-free, you pay the utilities, but the county is your fiscal agent, I guess, as a nonprofit?
I do pay an administration fee to the county. I pay $10,000 a year, which is budgeted every year and has been at that set price for what they do for my fiscal agent, doing all of my finances for me.
Okay. And is that taken away from their proportion of their contribution per calls?
If I was to move there or anywhere else.
No. I mean, I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that we are being billed on a percentage. I know Commissioner Clark was talking about this, on the number of call-outs.
Yes, sir.
So my question is the $10,000 of administration fee that is in your budget for the county, is that credited against their call-out fees? Or is that you pay them $10,000 and they pay you X per call?
Yes, sir, they do.
Okay. That's what I wanted to find out.
The percentage-based breakdowns, everybody gets it. The $10,000 is still paid for my administrative fees.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, I will stand for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to authorize that we give permission to the SCRTA board to use the fire station at 301 East 9th Street as an option to the new SCRTA department.
Okay, I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second. Second. I have a second by
Just a question, I was just,
Commissioner Franklin.
I'm maybe thinking about what Commissioner Heschler said, did you want to give the authorization now, or the authorization for them to consider it? Because you said that, bring it back for final approval to the commission at a later date.
Right.
So, if I make this motion, are we giving the
We're
authorization?
just giving
now?
it as an option.
Okay.
It's not a motion that's the building that they're going to move into. We're just giving the fire station as an option for their decision.
So I guess the question, if the SCRTA board says, yes, that's where we want to go, would they still have to come back to have the final approval? That's what
I
I'm
think
right?
that's a
Yes.
good point, Attorney
Yes.
Rubin. So, Mayor Pro
Okay.
Tem, would you consider adding that on as an addendum to your motion?
Okay, I'd like to add on that we give them the permission to use the fire station as an option to their decision, but upon their final decision by the SCRTA board, that they bring it back to the city commission for final approval. Does that work?
Okay, good, that's what I thought.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin. Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have a motion, I have a second by Commissioner Frankel. Is there any further discussion?
Well, yeah, I'm still back to the safety complex as being an option too that I'd like to have out there for SCRTA. They could say yes or no to either one of those. But do we need to have somebody else come and make a presentation for the safety complex so that we could do the same thing, or can we just put that blanket out there right now?
Well, just make it part of the motion.
Well, that's where I'm going. Could we add that to your motion, Mayor Pro Tem, that we have these two buildings and you can look at either one of them? Gives you more options to put on the table. Are you good with that, Mayor Pro
Add that on
Tem?
there.
Okay, so
I'm not going to repeat it. Just
we have an add-on to an add-on of a motion.
And let me just clarify, I thought that the option would be that could be an option, as well as a safety complex, as well as any other building that they were looking at, that we, as a commission, were just giving them that option to move into the fire station. You know, they may choose that they want the safety complex and want to wait there 2 or 3 years, or move into a building in Elephant Butte. So let's just consider every building that you're looking at as an option, but we've given you permission to use the fire station as one of those.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a motion that's been
So-
amended.
Agreed.
And,
Miss Catton.
So, are we comfortable with that? Any further
Well,
discussion?
it's the fire station and the safety complex are owned by the city, and that we're giving permission for you to consider those through the SCRTA board, and then come back to us after you've made a decision one way or the other, if you want to even use either one of those buildings.
For final approval.
For
That's
final
right.
approval.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Is that?
Yep.
did I get that?
I have a SCRTA board meeting next Wednesday. The city manager Fuentes, Chief Eldridge is on my board. That would be the time for them to bring it back on the table. We had tabled that, I couldn't give you a time from 8, 9 months ago. That would be the time that when we bring this up. I know that I don't have this on my next agenda, but I can always put that back. I have enough time. And if they want to bring it back, being one of the other considerations, because I have a couple of other buildings, so. Yeah, I know that my chair is not going to be there for next Wednesday. He contacted my vice chair, chief over here, so we can bring that up, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Just one more comment, and I think I want the safety complex on there only because of something Commissioner Heschler said, that having been in the police department before, and to consider that there is a value to have dispatch right next to the police department. It may not even work, but it's just a consideration, and you were the one that brought it up, and I appreciate that, because I'm the one that thought of that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Ms. Howard, thank you.
Thank you,
Chief,
Mayor,
thank
Commissioners.
for your presentation. I'm going to hold up, Chief, just for 1 second, if you'll excuse me just for 1 second. Some of the commissioners have notified me that they cannot make the 7 o'clock presentation
Oh, yeah.
to the fire, volunteer fire department. And since we have the chief here, this commission realized the value of our citizens volunteering to save our lives and our property. And so we had a proclamation from the City of Truth and Consequences that gives a little bit about the history when it was started in September 2nd, 1923 at the Hot Springs Volunteer Fire Department. And this commission felt that it was so important that we recognize what our volunteer fire department does, is that we, and I do apologize, and I have apologized to the chief, and I slipped my wrist and he saw the blood run out because I put this on my calendar at the wrong month. I had it, it's supposed to have been September, so my fellow commissioners, I take full responsibility. Don't get my age, I guarantee it's not fun. I put it on my calendar in October, it should have been September. So I apologize to my fellow commissioners, I apologize to the chief, I apologize to your volunteers. But I want to just read the last line that says, the City Commission of the City of Truth and Consequences does hereby recognize September 2nd, and I would ask city clerk to put that on every single calendar as we move forward, so whoever has the gavel in their hand here will not make the same mistake that I did, as TRC Volunteer Fire Department Appreciation Day. I heard the chief, when we were talking one time, said, you know, and it was just, it was just right out there, that the volunteer fire department probably saves the city somewhere between $750,000 to $1 million a year if we had to have our own fire department. So that would be a huge chunk out of our budget, and so we so appreciate it. I do apologize, but if you could give this to your volunteers this evening and hang it in a place of prominence, it would make us all, it will all make us very, very happy. Chief, I thank you so much. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Bringing true meaning to the words, a day late, a dollar light, and a beer short. I was only a month late, but I got the beer and I got the dollar, so moving on. Number 2, letter of support for a coalition against bigger trucks. This came across City Hall's desk, and Juan gave this to me, Manager Fuentes gave this to me, as well as Clerk Canton. And basically what it is that the trucking industry, and I have a two-edged sword here because that was one of the businesses that we were in, was interstate trucking, and my trucks are still running up and down I-25 from El Paso and Santa Teresa. We started back in Pennsylvania. We're finally encroaching out to the west here. And what they're asking for is, the trucking industry is asking for to increase the weight, the carrying capacity of the entire rig, which takes into consideration the tractor, the trailer, and the merchandise on that. Right now, the weight limit is 80,000 pounds, and when this was brought up to the Congress in 2015, it was defeated on a bipartisan vote. And the reason it was defeated is because there's a danger to motorists as well as our local roads, bridges, and infrastructure in towns and cities where deliveries are being made and goods are being picked up. And they've done a little bit of research, and if you take a look at Idaho, where they went from 80,000 to 97,000 pounds, that's the maximum, 99% higher crash rate for 6-axle trucks. Michigan, 400% higher crash rates for 6-axle trucks up to 97,000 pounds. And Washington, which has a 91,000 pound restriction, 47% higher crash rates for 6-axle trucks. We have a business loop bypass. These trucks would be coming into our community, into our county. Some of our bridges are not built to handle this. Some of our roads certainly are not. The roads would be on our dime, and even though if I was in the trucking business today, I have sold my shares in the business. I'm just an advisor for $1 a year on the board. That I might vote differently, but now I have a different role and a different set of responsibility for the citizens of this community. And I would like to have and strongly suggest the support of my fellow commissioners to write a letter to this coalition to protest the bigger trucks on our streets. It's a safety issue. It's a cost issue. It will put, looking at the other side, it will put people out of jobs. They'll be buying less trailers, less jobs. They'll be buying less tractors, less jobs. The capitalist in me says, hey, that's great, you'll make more money. I understand that, but you got to look beyond that, and we have to look what's best for the community. So I would like to have a letter of permission, and they've given us some sample letters of support to send into this coalition against bigger trucks on our community roads.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Clark. I need a second.
I'll second
I
that.
have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. I appreciate the support. The next item is approval to combine the November meetings and December meetings to hold one meeting each month due to the holidays.
So moved.
So moved.
So moved. Oh, y'all make it easy. We did this the last couple of years.
I think Mayor Pro Tem is hungry.
Yes, right. I'll make it easy. We did this the last couple of years, we're requesting it again, just to have one meeting each month. The only change I have from the background in your commission action form is that we're probably looking at 2 o'clock on November 15th instead of 1 o'clock.
Okay.
With that, I'll open it for any questions.
So, and that would be November 15th, and then December, are we dealing with December 13th?
December 13th.
Okay.
That would be 9 a.m.
That would be 9
And the
a.m.
reason for the November 15th was because it would be a conflict with the SCRTA meeting that's up that morning for the third Wednesdays.
And it is on a Wednesday.
Mhm.
That means that it's only
We're being
2 hours.
considerate.
Yes.
I'm not.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me, Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, so we have a suggestion by
I
city
seconded
clerk.
it already.
Okay, so we have a motion, just for the record, I'm going to make the motion so we don't get caught off guard here, that we move November's meeting to November 15th to be held at 2 p.m., and we move December's meeting to be held on December 13th to be held at 9 a.m. That is my motion. I have a tie for second by Commissioner Clark and Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries unanimously. Thank you. City report, City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'll report on some of those items under the executive session item.
Okay, thank you, sir. Attorney Rubin.
I have no report, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
The only report I would like to make in this regards a fire that happened on at the Cottonwood Trailer Park on 3rd Street Friday night. It happened at the corner of Maple and 2nd Street. We really need to look at our code enforcement getting in there and looking over the situation. It was a very bad situation that could have turned drastic, because right next door to that is the Cortez Gas. There's also the laundromat on 3rd Street. So it could have been a devastating situation that happened. You know, we live up at the next corner on Elm and 2nd, and my mother heard the fire trucks. I wasn't home. She looked out and saw this big tree engulfed in flames, and you know, it was kind of a scary situation for her. So that trailer park in itself really, really needs to look at as far as code enforcement.
Was it
You know,
electric or gas?
I don't know, it was in a motor home. The motor home was unoccupied. I understand there was little critters in the motor home, little animals. So I don't know what the full situation was. I know that the fencing around the parameter there is dry wood. I do know, because I did walk, when I got home, I walked over to the area to see what was going on, and I talked to one of the fire department personnel, and they said that they had trouble getting to the electrical hookups. And so, you know, this is situations that we don't want to put our volunteer fire department, as well as our residents, as well as our law enforcement, in any situation like this. So I would just like to make sure that this gets looked at by code enforcement.
Yeah, well, Commissioner Whitehead, the chief was something to me, wanted to make a comment about that.
Yes, ma'am, I'm glad you brought that location up. When we took over code enforcement, that was one of the properties that we identified that needed some immediate attention. I want you to know that they are already on our list. The owners have received letters about the fencing, that they discarded things that we got with sanitation. They went and picked a lot of that up, but we're still working with the owners to get that whole place cleaned up. So I just want to let you know it is on our radar, just like Black Range was, it still is. So we're making headway in getting those things addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Ashland? No, sir. Commissioner Clark?
No.
Commissioner Frankel?
Yes, please. I had the opportunity last week to attend a class here in the Civic Center for real estate brokers. It was a continuing education class. The very first thing that they had you do in the class was open your laptop and connect to the Wi-Fi spot for the Civic Center. And I was a little displeased to find that the service, Wi-Fi service for the Civic Center is not adequate at this time. It's hit or miss, the service that's provided, and the bandwidth that's being provided is not of significant strength to be able to provide adequate coverage to a group of people. One person can connect to the Civic Center, but if you had a large class going on, or we're actively marketing and renting the Civic Center as a place where you can come and do business, and in order to do this business, you need to be able to connect and do a web-based seminar. I'd like a report, if possible, on the status of the Wi-Fi for the city commission Civic Center area. I would like to know what the intention, what the current bandwidth is, what the necessity bandwidth could be, and how we can get ourselves up to a place where we could actively advertise ourselves as having current Wi-Fi capability to host business events here at the Civic Center.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'd like to, that's already being addressed, and I'll have Melissa report on that now.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Excellent.
Commissioner Franco, Commissioners, we're so glad you brought that up. This is one of the biggest challenges that we're having on our IT. One of the reasons being is because our vendor, which is Windstream, they have been very challenging to work with and to try to get what we are needing. Not only are we filling the squeeze here in this location, but our field is also filling the squeeze. And so what we started doing was we started looking at different options that we could explore in this community. One in which is TDS. We're under negotiations right now with TDS. It's going to be cheaper, and it's going to be double the speed, and they are going to go around the whole city facilities that we have and get everything upgraded at their cost. So we should have everything online with our new Wi-Fi, our new upgrade by January. This area is one of our priorities, so we should have this up and running within a month.
If you could please keep the board updated of the status of that.
Definitely. Yes, sir.
I'll let you know when I don't have to hotspot.
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know anything about this. So we're leaving Windstream, we're going to TDS, is that so?
Yes, sir, that's
So-
correct.
But Windstream will still be present in our community. The city is leaving them as a customer.
Right,
because
right.
How about
Correct.
the individual citizens?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, that's all right,
Yes, sir.
You start talking a language I don't understand at all. I just want to make sure the city is in great shape, but all the citizens have no connectivity.
You're
All
just
right.
changing services from
Yeah.
one to the other.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you. I must say, Commissioner Franco, that is the quickest response I have ever seen from a request by a commission. You have got power. Let me tell you something. I'll be real quick because the hour is getting late. I just wanted to I was at the farmer's market last Saturday, and I was talking to Colleen Davis, who is the farmer's market manager for the Bountiful Alliance, and I said, hey, I heard you canceled the farmer's market last Saturday. And she said, yes. I said, so what's up with that? And it turned out that was the week we had this horrific rainfall. And even though there was no standing water at Ralph Edwards Park, Colleen Davis had enough insight to realize that driving farmers' trucks and unloading and putting tables and chairs was not a good thing. And she made an executive decision on her own to cancel the farmer's market. It probably put some people, it was inconvenient to some people. Some people couldn't get in, the Monticello group, except Ms. Jeffries got in. But I just wanted to, I thought that was wonderful. Putting a city asset above, right there, right at the top. Because if we don't have it, if we don't preserve our city assets, what do we got? So just a kind of a high five and a shout out to the Bountiful Alliance Farmers Market for looking after city property, and certainly we appreciate that. That is the end of my report. I'm quite sure everyone is saying thank God. And now we're going into executive session. I will need a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we go into executive session for K1 for under pending litigation at 714 Cooper regarding the easement pursuant to 1015-1H7, and K2 limited personnel matters, city manager annual evaluation pursuant to 1015-1H2.
All right, I have a motion. I need a second. I have a second by Commissioner Franco. Any further discussion? Can I have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Eschler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Yes.
Honorable Joshua Franco?
We have
Hungry?
Commissioner Franco is still with us, and